Chapter 1298. From Yunjian's expression, she looked very calm. However, those who knew her knew that she was about to get angry. Hee hee, you want me to die? Mira suddenly sneered. Because of Myra's high status, the surrounding people immediately shouted in shock. Who's that little girl? She actually dared to challenge Miss Mira, the daughter of Europe's military family. I think this little girl will die a horrible death. TSK, just like that woman who overestimated herself. Her breast will be cut open while she's still alive. Why don't we go and negotiate with Miss Mira and ask her to let us have some fun before she kills this little girl? All the men standing around were saying disgusting obscenities. Before Maina's death, not only did the people around her not help her, but one of them even kicked Maina back to Mira when she desperately tried to escape. The crowd couldn't wait to watch a free and exciting show. This group of shameless people were still saying shameless things. However, just as they were saying this, the man who suggested to negotiate with Mira and sell Yunjian out for everyone to have some fun before Mira killed Yunjian suddenly had his head pressed down by a slender hand. After that hand pressed down on the man who was fantasizing about Yunjian, the other hand fiercely slapped the man's head, directly fixing his head and twisting his neck. Gotcha! The man died on the spot. The whole process didn't even take 3 seconds. And this person was killed by the owner of this pair of slender hands. The person who killed him was undoubtedly C.E. C.E.'s face darkened as he directly killed the man. The surrounding people were so frightened that they took 3 steps back. They weren't afraid of C.E. killing people, but of C.E.'s superb skills. One more word, and you'll go to hell. C.E. coldly spat out this sentence. Among this group of people, C.E. was one of the tallest. However, among this group of people, C.E. was without a doubt the most handsome one. Because they had never seen C.E. in this kind of underground gathering, the surrounding people thought that C.E. was weak. However, when C.E. walked over from afar and killed someone in 3 seconds, the people around them dared not utter a word of nonsense anymore. On the other side, when Mira saw that C.E. who was with Yunjian was so powerful, her arrogant and despotic attitude instantly collapsed. Seeing Yunjian walk towards her step by step, Mira was afraid. However, her years of arrogance made Mira unable to lower her head. She suddenly pointed at Yunjian and shouted at Yunjian, "You, stop right there. I'm the young mistress of Europe's arms industry. My father's firearms influence covers the entire Europe. If you dare to attack me today, I'll make sure you die miserably." Mira was frightened by Yunjian's aura. Some people were born with a strong aura. Just their aura alone was enough to make people retreat 3 feet in fear. Yunjian was such a person. Yunjian didn't say anything. She continued to walk towards Mira. Her footsteps were very slow. Her feet didn't make any sound when she stepped on the ground. Seeing that Yunjian didn't retreat, Mira was stunned. However, Mira quickly reacted and threatened Yunjian again. "Let me tell you, my father is about to form an alliance with the Kosha mercenaries. If you dare to do anything to me today, all of you will die. I will pull out all of your tendons and peel off all of your skin." Myra's threat caused the surrounding people to cry out in surprise. Europe's arms industry tycoon was about to form an alliance with the Kosha mercenaries. Then, just as everyone was thinking of this, an ice-cold, enchanting female voice that sounded like the sound of nature reached everyone's ears. Chapter 1299. Yunjian's words were extremely high-profile this time. She did not use Kosha mercenaries, but my Kosha mercenaries. The former could give people a feeling of yes or no, but the latter was an absolute tone. Her Kosha mercenaries was the only person who had the right to say that. Even the higher-ups of Kosha mercenaries, Elder Snake Lizard and Elder Tiger Leopard, did not have the right. The only person who had the right was the boss of Kosha mercenaries. At the same time, other than those around her, no one had ever seen her face. She was the #1 secret agent on the International Secret Agent ranking, Slaying God, who possessed exquisite assassination skills. Someone once said that if they could meet Slaying God, the #1 secret agent on the International Secret Agent ranking, one's life would not be in vain. Of course, These are the words of those who had come into contact with this Tao. An ordinary person might not even know about the secret agent ranking and assassin ranking, let alone the rest. It could be said that her father's alliance with kosher mercenaries was Myra's biggest trump card. However, after she revealed her biggest trump card, Yunjian's reply was all she got. My kosher mercenaries? You're the boss of kosher mercenaries? No, how is that possible? Myra's expression changed drastically. Myra's face turned extremely pale in front of everyone's eyes. Everyone who was standing around was shocked. This little girl she was the boss of kosher mercenaries? How is that possible? If she was the boss of kosher mercenaries, then she was the #1 secret agent on the international secret agent ranking, slaying God. Slaying God? She was slaying God. Slaying God. You're slaying God. The people around her exclaimed in shock. Yunjian's words were like a ticking time bomb that exploded in an instant. Slaying God. What kind of existence was she? He was simply a legendary figure. Since slaying God's debut, many international businessmen and politicians have been quietly killed. There is even a saying in the underworld that went like this. Those who were targeted by slaying God would feel as if the Grim Reaper had his hands on their necks. None of them had ever imagined that such a person would one day stand in front of them alive. Doya and Charlotte also recovered from the deep despair they felt when they saw Maina's death. The two of them looked at Yunjian in disbelief after hearing what the crowd said. Slaying God? Doya and Charlotte were stunned. They were completely dumbfounded. Doya and Charlotte would never have dreamed that it was because they were kind enough to save Yunjian 2 days ago. Even if Yunjian didn't need it, just this one move was enough to change their fates completely. Hell, what's slaying God? Look at how old you are. How dare you claim that the kosher mercenaries are yours? Do you think others won't say such nonsense? Do you really think that people will believe that you're slaying God just because you spout nonsense? A mocking male voice came out of nowhere. He wanted to continue, but just as the words were about to leave his mouth, a small flying dagger was flung from where Yunjian was to the man who spoke. The flying dagger flew out of Yunjian's hand and entered the man's mouth the moment he opened it, piercing it. The man's mouth was pierced by the flying dagger and blood splattered everywhere. Although he was not dead, the man fainted from the sudden pain that he did not even have time to react to. Yunjian spoke to Qingyu, who had just rushed over and was standing behind her. Qingyu, kill that blabbermouth. The two words Qingyu made everyone's eyes widen. Chapter 1300. Qingyu's name was well known in the underworld as well, because she was slaying God's follower and she was a master of poison. How skillful was Qingyu when it came to poisoning? For example, Qingyu could brush past a person within 3 meters. She did not even have to lift her hand, and she could poison the person who brushed past her without anyone noticing. She could make people die without anyone knowing. That was Qingyu's ability. It was because of this terrifying ability that the people in the underworld feared Qingyu, second only to slaying God. This was because slaying God had killed her openly, while Qingyu could kill a person in such a way that the person would not even know why he died. This was the power of poison techniques. Slaying God was the one who made Qingyu famous. It could be said that other than snake, lizard and tiger, leopard from the kosher mercenaries, Qingyu was one of the few who could follow slaying God and even see her face. Moreover, Qingyu was always by slaying God's side. She would not listen to anyone else other than slaying God. Therefore, when they heard Yunjian address the girl behind her as Qingyu, the people around them were shocked. After the shock, it was followed by endless terror and fear. Oh my God, slaying God is her. It's really her. Someone could not help exclaiming. Just as he exclaimed, however, he covered his mouth in fright, afraid that Yunjian would hear what he said. Myra's legs were shaking from fear. Mira had never met anyone who was more powerful than her father, so she had always been fearless. Until just now, she was completely terrified. She still remembered her father telling her that she should not offend these two people in the underworld. If she did, they would annihilate the entire armaments family. One of them was slaying God, who ranked first on the secret agent leaderboard, while the other was an Hun's leader. However, Mira had always thought that it was impossible for her to meet them. When she heard that Yunjian was slaying God, she felt like her world had collapsed. At this moment, Yunjian had already walked up to Mira. She stretched out her hand and grabbed Myra's long hair. The group of bodyguards around Mira, including Myra's man, didn't even dare to let out a fart. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. They watched as Yunjian pulled Myra's long hair and pulled Myra's face in front of her. From afar, Qingyu poured out a bottle of dissolving water and turned the unconscious man into a puddle of blood before everyone's eyes. There was a horrifying sound of dissolving chemicals. Who else in the world could use a bottle of liquid to turn a person into a pool of blood? Qingyu's performance had proven her identity in front of everyone. She was Qingyu, Elder Qingyu of the Kosham mercenaries. At the same time, she was also known as the Poison Lady by outsiders. Yunjian dragged Mira to witness the man's body turning into a puddle of blood after Qingyu poured a bottle of liquid on him. Usually, Mira would not be frightened by such a gory scene, but it was different now. Now that she was being suppressed by Yunjian, the fact that Yunjian was showing her such a gory scene was, "Do you want to have a taste?" Yunjian forced Mira to watch the scene. She was already next to Mira, her lips close to Myra's ears as she whispered something that scared Mira out of her wits. No. Although Mira liked to kill, she was completely terrified when it came to the moment where she would be killed. Yunjian did not wait for Mira to finish. Her lips curled into a sinister smirk that was as eerie as the Grim Reaper from hell. She grabbed Myra's back with her right hand and flung her face and chest to the ground. Mira was flung to the ground directly, her nose smashing into the ground. Mira was terrified. Just as she was about to stand up, she felt a strong foot stepping on her back. Then, she was firmly pressed down, not allowing her to get up. Above her back, Yunjian's decisive voice rang. "Shuang, give me a saw. I'll cut off her limbs with my own hands today." His words were extremely calm, but the words he said were enough to frighten people. However, that was not everyone's focus. Shuang, one of the 4 leaders of the Enhan organization. Someone's eyes widened after hearing Yunjian's words. Shuang lowered his head at Yunjian and replied respectfully, "Yes. Oh my God, the 4 leaders of the Enhan organization are here too." Someone's face turned pale with fright. Not long after Shuang left, a few female silhouettes came from afar. When the leader saw Mira under Yunjian's foot, he sprinted over and could not stop himself from calling out, "Mira, oh my God." Yunjian looked up and saw Hina, Maggie, and the rest who she met in the hot spring running over. The one who shouted was the arrogant Hina. When Yunjian entered a hot spring, Hina sent Maggie to chase her away and even wanted to kill her. Now that she saw Hina and Maggie, Yunjian narrowed her eyes. Not long after, Hina, Maggie, and the rest stood in front of Yunjian. Hina saw Yunjian stepping on Mira, and her expression changed drastically. She did not know what was going on, so when she saw Yunjian's action, she scolded Yunjian directly. Chapter 1301. Hina also became friends with Mira 2 days ago. Although Mira looked down on Hina at the beginning, after seeing that Hina had connections in Kosha mercenaries and in Han organization, she started to talk to Hina more. Myra's father told her to make more useful friends, and Mira always kept it in mind, so she forced herself to talk to Hina more. This made Hina think that she had successfully become friends with Mira. When she saw Mira being stepped on by Yunjian, Hina wanted to flatter Mira, so she rushed in and threatened Yunjian with Mira and her status. In this world where the strong were respected, strength and status represented everything. Hina also believed that if she said so, Yunjian would definitely be scared and let go of her foot. But what Hina didn't expect was that Yunjian didn't let go of her foot. Instead, after hearing Hina's threat, she stepped harder on Myra's back. Mira was being stepped on by this foot and kept howling. But now she didn't even have the courage to beg for mercy. "Did you hear what I said? Why aren't you letting go of your dirty feet? I've seen a lot of rookies like you who think you're great, but actually just mixed in our circle. If you let go of your foot now, I can still leave you a whole corpse. Otherwise, Hina looked at Yunjian as if she was a senior looking at a new rookie. Hina thought that she had been in this circle for 5 or 6 years. What kind of things had she not seen? People like Hina, she wasn't a professional killer trained by an organization. Usually, professional killers trained by an organization, if they could come out alive from the organization, they must be at the level of a senior killer or an agent. In this world, some people started to come into contact with the circle of killers or agents when they were 15 or 16 years old, almost approaching adulthood, and started to practice their skills. Hina started to train when she was 15 or 16 years old. Think about it. Hina started to train when she was 15 or 16 years old, and she only learned the killer moves. It was different from someone like Yunjian who grew up among the dead and had to kill others in exchange for her survival, a secret agent assassin who grew up in actual combat. It could be compared like this. One was the real deal, and the other was just a cheap pirated version. Hina herself started to train and learn killer moves around Yunjian's age, so she naturally thought that Yunjian was just a rookie. She had probably just started to mingle in this circle, hadn't she? How dare he be so arrogant in front of me? Before Hina finished her words, some lackeys beside her, led by Maggie, had started to echo her words. Exactly. That's right. Our sister Sheena has thousands of ways to make you die miserably. Moreover, Sister Sheena has people in the Enhan organization and kosher mercenaries. If you know what's good for you, kneel down and beg for mercy. Then, we can give you a good death. Otherwise, we'll kill you. Maggie and the others looked at Yunjian with hatred, as if they couldn't wait to tear Yunjian into pieces. Maggie even thought in her heart that she shouldn't have let Yunjian go just because she owed Doya a favor. Seeing this, Doya and Charlotte clenched their fists tightly. At this moment, a mellow male voice was heard. Before everyone could react, the owner of the mellow male voice was already standing beside Yunjian. Si looked at Shui Ing, who just came back with the saw, and stood beside him silently. He said to Shui Ing in front of everyone with a slight anger. Chapter 1302. Si couldn't tolerate having sand in his eyes. The reason why Enhan was able to achieve what it had today was due to the strict implementation of Enhan's own rules. Normally, Si could joke around with the 4 leaders of the Enhan organization, but when it came to critical moments, he wouldn't allow a single mistake to happen. Moreover, the Enhan organization had its own rules. Everyone in the organization wasn't allowed to be related. The meaning of this rule was that anyone who belonged to the Enhan organization wasn't allowed to use the name of the organization to cause trouble. It meant that no outsiders were allowed to use the words, "I know someone from the Enhan organization," to swagger around in the circle. It was obvious that the man Hina mentioned was from the Enhan organization, and she was using this to her advantage. This was something Si couldn't tolerate. The members in Enhan would definitely be protected by the organization. However, if they were to flaunt their prowess on the international stage just because they were slightly related to Enhan, they were basically using Enhan's name to swindle people everywhere. See, he had severely suppressed this a long time ago. This was something he couldn't tolerate. Yes, young master. Shuiying was sweating for Lin Wei. See, he rarely spoke with anger. In fact, Shuiying knew that the anger in Si's tone this time was because someone was targeting Yunjian in the name of Enhan group. That was why Si was so angry. The only person who could make Si emotional was Yunjian. If this matter didn't involve Yunjian, even if the Enhan organization was destroyed, Shuiying reckoned that Si's expression wouldn't change at all. Thus, when comparing the Enhan organization to Yunjian, Shuiying reckoned that in Si's heart, even if there were hundreds of billions of Enhan organization, they wouldn't be able to compare to Yunjian. Thinking of this, Shuiying deepened his thoughts of going to Yunjian to flatter her. He felt that he needed a plan for Mo Senya to go with him to flatter Yunjian. Thinking of this, Shuiying dialed Ling Wei's communicator and ran to the side to talk. He left behind a group of dumbfounded people. The people standing around had been there since Yunjian's identity as slaying God was exposed. They had witnessed the entire process. Hina, Maggie, and the others were all aware of their performance, and they all thought that Hina, Maggie, and the others were doomed. However, No one expected the man standing next to Slaying God to order Shuang, one of the 4 leaders of Han, in such a tone. And most importantly, Shuang was actually obedient. Then this meant that, could it be that this young man, he's the leader of Han? Someone cried out in astonishment, which struck everyone's hearts in an instant. Everyone's faces turned pale. Hearing what CE said, the people around them felt the urge to flee as quickly as possible. However, due to fear, they were rooted to the ground like nails. There was a rumor that anyone who met Han's leader would be killed by the organization. Even if they managed to escape, they would be hunted down by Han. In other words, they would die without a doubt. Hina, Maggie, and the others who were still acting all high and mighty earlier fell apart in an instant. Especially Hina, who had just boasted that her man was from Han. In the end, Yunjian's man was the leader of Han who had never shown his face. This couldn't be real, right? A kosher mercenary's boss and Han's leader. They're a perfect match. I'm afraid there's no one else in this world who's more compatible than them. Just as Hina was in disbelief, a voice from the side sent her to the bottom of the valley. The kosher mercenary's boss? Slaying God? Slaying God, the #1 secret agent in the international ranking. Chapter 1303. Yunjian. It was Slaying God. Hina's expression changed drastically at the sudden realization. She was terrified. Had she offended Han's leader and the boss of kosher mercenaries just to please Mira? Just as she was thinking about it, Yunjian's voice was heard. Shuang, have you brought the saw? It's here. Shuang obeyed. He quickly brought the saw in his hand to Yunjian and passed it to her. The saw was used by farmers to chop down trees. It was only a matter of time before it could be used to cut off a person's leg. Of course, if one were to use this saw to cut off a person's leg without anesthetics, it would be a fate worse than death. Yunjian took the saw and placed it gently on Myra's fair-skinned legs under her shorts. She gently slid down, and the sharp saw cut Myra's fair and smooth thigh, causing blood to gush out. No, sob sob. Mira was trembling in fear. However, Yunjian stepped on her back so hard that she could not move at all. Yunjian bent down and patted Myra's face gently in front of everyone. Then, her soft voice came from above Mira. This saw is quite sharp. It's perfect for sawing off your legs and hands. I'll cut off your legs first, then your hands, and then dig out your heart. Let's do it slowly. Don't rush, okay? Yunjian sounded like she was talking to herself, but Mira was scared out of her wits when she heard it. No, I was wrong. I shouldn't have killed that woman. I'll do whatever you want me to. How about, I'll ask my father to stop allying with your kosher mercenaries as long as you don't kill me. Don't kill me. It was Myra's first time experiencing the fear of death. She could clearly feel Mayina's struggle before she died. However, the main character this time was Mira herself. Before Mira could finish her sentence, Yunjian had already raised the saw and slashed it on Myra's thigh. Mira almost fainted from the sudden pain. However, Yunjian held Myra's philtrum tightly to prevent her from passing out. At this moment, Mira would rather pass out. Yunjian. Just as Yunjian was about to cut off Myra's leg with the saw, a weak voice was heard. Yunjian turned and saw Doya looking at her with a pale face. Yunjian stopped what she was doing and turned to look at Doya. However, Doya paused. Then, she mustered up her courage and said to Yunjian, Yunjian, she killed Na. I want to avenge Na. I'll kill Mira. Even after knowing Yunjian's identity, Doya could still look at her openly. Although she was slightly fearful, she was braver than most of the men here, since she stood out after knowing Yunjian's identity. Yes, we'll kill Mira. Charlotte clenched her fists tightly. Her eyes were red, but she resisted the urge to cry out loud. She looked at Yunjian like Doya. Yunjian narrowed her eyes when she heard the voices. She looked at Doya and Charlotte's enthusiasm. She liked it very much. Chapter 1304. After Yunjian finished speaking, she looked down at Mira, who was under her feet. Mira didn't faint because Yunjian had pinched her philtrum. All Yunjian wanted was for Mira to be in so much pain that she wished she was dead. With a gentle flick of her hand, she swung the saw at Doya and Charlotte without even lifting her head to look at the pair. Doya reached out and caught the saw that Yunjian had tossed over. She grabbed the saw and rushed towards Mira with red eyes. Doya grabbed the saw and rushed to Mira, shouting, "Go to hell." In the next second, Doya grabbed the saw and slashed at Myra's thigh. With a few forceful slashes, one of Myra's thighs was cut off. The leg was completely separated from Myra's body. Mira instantly howled in pain because Yunjian had pinched Myra's philtrum. Mira couldn't resist at all. Her screams pierced through the sky, but no one cared. After Doya chopped off one of Myra's legs, she suddenly remembered that Maina was humiliated to death by Mira. When Maina's chest was cut open, the people around her didn't have any sympathy. The men even whistled as they watched happily. Doya raised the saw and was about to chop off Myra's other leg when Charlotte frantically snatched the saw away. After Myra's arms and legs were chopped off, she couldn't wake up even after pinching her philtrum. She completely fainted. Yunjian stood aside and watched as Doya and Charlotte sawed off Myra's limbs and chopped her into pieces. It was only when Mira breathed her last that Doya and Charlotte stood before Yunjian with their hands clasped. Myra's death could at most avenge Maina, but Maina was dead. Myra's death could not bring Maina back to life. Yunjian lowered her eyes. She didn't turn around. See, he was standing behind Yunjian. He reached out and pulled Yunjian into his embrace, then ordered Shuang, "Kill everyone here." That didn't include Doya and Charlotte. Shuang naturally knew what was going on. "What? You actually want to kill us? Why?" When some people heard Siyi's words, their expressions changed drastically, and they all began to turn and flee frantically. With Shui Ying's ability, even if everyone present worked together, they still wouldn't be a match for him. Moreover, anyone who was targeted by the leader of an Hun would definitely die. Encountering such a situation, it was impossible for them not to run. Every one of them ran faster than anyone else. When Qin Yu saw this, she helped Shui Ying to kill all those who were trying to escape. The one thing Hina regretted the most before she died was that she didn't care about anything and rushed to help Mira. But in the end, she got herself killed. She regretted provoking Yunjian. This devil. There were corpses everywhere, but Yunjian and Siyi's expressions didn't change at all. To Yunjian and Siyi, dead people were something they were used to. This was how it was in this circle. If you weren't strong, you deserved to die. It was because Yunjian and Siyi were strong that those people deserved to die. Yunjian was nestled in Siyi's embrace. Siyi hugged her from behind and lowered his head to sniff the faint fragrance on her body. Yunjian extended a hand and placed it in front of Doya and Charlotte. She pursed her lips and said after a while, "Are the two of you willing to join the Kosha mercenaries?" She was very satisfied with Doya and Charlotte's performance just now. If she taught them well, they would definitely become elites and talents in the underworld. Chapter 1305. Yunjian's eyes flashed with determination. Both Doya and Charlotte were stunned. They did not expect Yunjian to say that. "Are you two willing to join the Kosha mercenaries?" Doya and Charlotte would never dream of such a good thing. They would never dream of Yunjian inviting them to join the Kosha mercenaries just because they had saved the Kosha mercenaries' boss. Doya and Charlotte knew very well that they had to fight for their own success. They had never thought that they would dream of Yunjian repaying them for saving Yunjian. Hence, when they heard Yunjian's words, Doya and Charlotte were stunned. If it were anyone else, they would definitely nod their head and join first before thinking about anything else. However, Doya and Charlotte did not do that. Doya lowered her head and looked at the dust on the ground. She was about to speak when she heard a voice. Just as she was about to say something, Yunjian's voice came again. "Don't worry. I've never invited useless people to join the Kosha mercenaries. I'm inviting you to join the Kosha mercenaries because you have the ability to grow. As for me, I'm just a talent scout." This was what Doya and Charlotte were worried about. They were different from others. They wanted to rely on their own ability to survive in this world. They did not want to rely on their relatives, friends, or lovers to flaunt their prowess everywhere like Mira or Hina. They wanted to become stronger, just like Yin Jian, who did not rely on anyone. All right, I agree. Doya grinned at Yin Jian all of a sudden. I agree too. Charlotte clenched her fists. They had to become strong so that they would not be bullied, so that they would not be like before when they could only watch helplessly as Mira killed Maina. Then, I welcome you all to join us. Yin Jian narrowed her eyes and smiled, a sharp luster flashing in her eyes. Yin Jian only invited Doya and Charlotte to join. As for the others, she did not care. She, Yin Jian, did not invite the weak. Other friends like Doya and Charlotte were not qualified to do so. Anyone that Yin Jian invited would definitely be a future powerhouse that she recognized. She wouldn't accept trash. The flower bed where Yin Jian and the others were was quite a distance away from the venue of the tea party. At this moment, in the dance hall of the tea party, the snake lizard was already here. She was standing in the middle of the hall with her arms crossed. Many people recognized Snake, Lizard's identity, and came forward to express their goodwill. However, Snake, Lizard did not pay any attention to him. She still maintained her cold and aloof appearance. You, Elder Snake Lizard, greetings. I'm Europe's arms tycoon, Moreau. We've met before. Last time, I proposed an alliance with the Kosham mercenaries. It should be about time, right? The man who called himself Moreau bowed in front of Snake, Lizard, and spoke to her respectfully. Moreau was Myra's father and was also a Europe's arms tycoon. I forgot. Snake. Lizard stood there with her arms crossed. She did not even pay attention to Moreau. Hearing that, Moreau's face was immediately filled with awkwardness. However, he continued to move forward. However, at this moment, the door suddenly opened. A beautiful teenage girl and a handsome man walked in from outside the door. A handsome man followed behind them. The handsome man held a gunny sack in one hand and threw it in front of everyone. The contents of the gunny sack rolled out. It was a body without limbs. The body was stiff, but the face was intact. It was obvious who this person was. Chapter 1306. When he saw that Shuang had thrown the corpse out of the sack, which was so cold that there was no warmth at all, and it was a corpse with four broken limbs. Miru had just turned his head to look curiously, but at the same time, he screamed out in horror, "Ah, daughter? My daughter, Mila." Mila had always been spoiled by Milu. She was so spoiled that she was afraid she would melt. Milu also felt that all this was natural. So when he knew that Mila had fallen in love with perverted killing methods, Milu did not stop her. Instead, he found a bunch of living people for Mila to play with. Then, he used all kinds of cruel methods to kill those people. Yes, Mila had liked to kill a living person in the most cruel way since she was young. For example, when she killed Maina just now, Mila cut off Maina's chest while she was still alive. But to Mila, watching Maina's chest being cut off while she was still alive was a very fun and interesting thing. And Milu had always indulged his daughter to do this, because he had the ability to indulge his daughter to treat others like this. But when he saw his most precious daughter's limbs being broken and thrown on the ground like trash, he was shocked. And when he heard Yun Jin call his daughter, he thought, "Thing? Whose thing is this? Come out and claim it." It was just a simple statement, but Miru's initial calmness had turned into a state where he could not wait to strangle Yun Jin to death, cut her into 1,000 pieces, and tear her apart. "Ah, my precious daughter, ah!" Milu screamed and roared. His whole face turned red in front of everyone's eyes. Because of his anger, Milu's whole face turned red. Yin Jian looked at Milu's extremely angry face. She narrowed her eyes, and a murderous intent flashed in her eyes. Then, Yin Jian hooked her finger at Milu with a hint of mockery. After Yin Jian hooked her finger at Milu, she paused for a while before continuing, "Your daughter killed my friend." Yin Jian's initial smirk was gone as she spoke, her expression turning cold all of a sudden. "So she must pay the price," Yin Jian said coldly. At this point, she paused again, and Yin Jian reached out her hand and pointed at Miru. "The price is I want your position as Europe's arms tycoon, Yun Jian said arrogantly. She was arrogant because she had the right to be arrogant. She was arrogant because she had the right to be arrogant. As long as she took away Miro's position as the European arms tycoon, Yun Jian would have all of Miro's financial resources and manpower. The European arms tycoon was not an ordinary person or a small position. If Yun Jian were to obtain this position, she would definitely double the status of the Kosha mercenaries internationally. Yun Jian's words caused an uproar among the crowd. In particular, the top assassins and secret agents from all over the world were all present at the scene. Yun Jian, a teenage girl, rushed in and pointed at Miru exaggeratedly, asking him a hand over the position of the European arms tycoon. Was this little girl crazy? Ha! Little girl, why didn't you go home to find your mother to drink milk? Why did you come here to sing? Ha! Someone was suddenly amused by Yun Jian, and then walked 3 meters away from Yun Jian while holding his stomach. The surrounding people were infected by this person's atmosphere, and one by one, they all laughed. However, the man who walked 3 meters away from Yun Jian immediately held his stomach and laughed. Yun Jian suddenly glanced at him from the corner of her eyes. She reached out her hand, and a blade flew along the track to the man's neck at a speed that could not be captured by the naked eye. One knife, and the throat was sealed. The man was still laughing, but his laughter suddenly stopped, and in the next second, he fell to the ground with a plop. The people who were laughing and mocking Yun Jian for being a little kid all stopped laughing instantly. Suddenly, the surroundings were silent. Chapter 1307. Just a moment ago, Miru was still growling angrily and wanted to rush forward. His delusional action of rushing forward abruptly stopped in the next second. It was because the man who mocked Yun Jian just now was killed by the flying dagger Yun Jian had thrown just like that. This young lady was definitely not as simple as she looked. Miru's impulsive desire to charge forward and kill Yun Jian on the spot was quelled at this moment. Miru was a European arms tycoon after all. The fact that he could climb to this position that countless people were waiting for meant that Miru was not someone who acted on impulse. Even if his daughter was brutally murdered, Miru could only glare viciously at Yun Jian from afar because of the power that Yun Jian had displayed earlier. Compared to Miru, the surrounding group of people were dumbfounded. The people who mocked Yun Jian, along with the man who was killed earlier, all shut their mouths. The place was silent. The crowd watched as Yun Jian walked toward Miru. Siyi, who was walking side by side with Yun Jian, walked at the same time as well. Shuang, who was behind them, followed as well. Qingyu, Doya, and the rest did not come over. Qingyu was still contacting the Kosha mercenaries to deal with the incident earlier. At this moment, someone among the crowd saw Shuang, who was following behind Yun Jian, and see. He's one of the 4 leaders of the Enhun group. Shuang? The crowd was stunned when they heard this. Even Miru's eyelids twitched. Miru clenched his fists. She killed his daughter. He would never let Yun Jian go. Just as Miru was thinking this, he suddenly noticed a slender and cold silhouette walking past him. Snake! Lizard twisted her seductive body and walked toward Yun Jian under Miru's gaze. Miru's heart skipped a beat. Snake! Lizard's cold face looked at Yun Jian, who had an equally cold expression. Miru thought that Snake. Lizard had a grudge against Yun Jian. Now that Snake. Lizard was heading towards Yun Jian. Could it be? Elder Snake Lizard, as long as you kill her for me and avenge my daughter, I will give you half of my financial resources and power. Miru couldn't wait to tear Yun Jian into pieces. Therefore, Miru had put in his capital this time. As long as he could kill Yun Jian, who had persecuted his poor daughter, Miru was willing to give up half of his wealth and power. Moreover, Miru knew that the condition he offered was very tempting. He was also certain that Snake Lizard would definitely agree. After all, if the Kosha mercenaries could obtain half of the forces under the European arms tycoon, it would be enough to strengthen their international standing. What's more, killing this teenage girl should be a piece of cake for Snake Lizard, right? Miru's words did not receive any response from Snake Lizard. However, Miru was already confident that Snake Lizard would help him kill Yun Jian. Looking at Snake Lizard walking towards Yunjian, while Yunjian was frowning slightly. Miru was even more determined in his thoughts. In order to make Snake, Lizard quickly kill Yunjian for him. Miru even shouted at Snake, "Lizard, quick! Kill her quickly! Kill her! Kill her, and I will give you half of my financial resources and power." Miru's face turned red. It was the kind of red that came from anger. However, just as Miru finished speaking, Yunjian's voice rang out, "I'm only worth half of your arms and power? Then wouldn't it be more worth it for me to kill you and take all your forces?" Yunjian's words made everyone present confused. What nonsense was this little girl talking about? Just as they were thinking about it, Snake, Lizard had already walked in front of Yunjian. However, before Snake, Lizard could speak, a man's figure suddenly walked in through the gate. The man glanced around and locked onto Yunjian. The man walked over and shouted at Yunjian, "Assess. So you are here. Sister Snake. Lizard has been looking for you for a long time." The man was Mad Dragon. Chapter 1308. As soon as Mad Dragon and Snake, Lizard said that, everyone around them looked at Yunjian in fear. Everyone stared at her. SS. If Yunjian's acquaintances did not know what SS meant, everyone here knew what it meant. In the underworld, there was no one else who could be called SS other than Slaying God. Moreover, Snake, Lizard called Yunjian her sister. That man is Mad Dragon from a Hun group. Mad Dragon only joined the Kosha mercenaries recently. That means this young lady is slaying God. In her past life, Yunjian would attend such events as well, but every time she appeared, there would be an uproar from the crowd. Of course, other than the uproar from the small fries around them, the big shots around them narrowed their eyes and looked at Yunjian provocatively. Miru's ability was not to be underestimated, but in an event like this, his status was at the bottom. Therefore, when he heard that Yunjian was slaying God, he recalled how he had asked Snake, Lizard, to kill Yunjian. Miru felt as if he had been struck by lightning, and he stood rooted to the ground. Looking at the bewildered looks and squinting eyes of the people around her, Yunjian was unfazed. She merely frowned. In the past, Yunjian would use a human skin mask and an incredible disguise skill to turn herself into another person when she attended various events. Everyone in the underworld knew that, so even if they saw Yunjian's face, no one would look for Slaying God based on Yunjian's appearance. As time passed, no one would do such a stupid thing. Yunjian knew that if she showed her real face today, everyone would think that she was wearing a human skin mask, and no one would be willing to investigate her face. Even if someone were to investigate, she had a way to kill them before they could track her down. In the past, the Kosha mercenaries did not have the ability to do that, but now she had the ability to do it. Therefore, she did not have to disguise herself as another person anymore. Outsiders thought that she was very mysterious in her past life. But in reality, Yunjian did not want to expose herself because she was afraid that she would not be able to protect herself after her identity was exposed. After all, the #1 position on the special agent ranking list was occupied by many powerful international figures. There were also countless people who were eyeing this position covetously. At the same time, Yunjian had already reached her hand out to Miru. She took 2 steps toward Miru, her expression unchanged as she said, "Hand over your European firearms force obediently, and I'll leave your corpse intact." Yunjian was never one to let her emotions get the better of her. To be honest, Yunjian did not look for Milu today just for Maina. Maina's death was just an excuse. What Yunjian wanted was Miru's European firearms force. Shuiying, who was standing behind Ce, immediately knew that Ce did not intend to expose her identity when Ce glanced at him. However, compared to protecting Yunjian, his young master was willing to do anything. Shuiying gulped, cleared his throat gently, and turned to look at the crowd. The Enhan organization has reached an agreement with the Kosha mercenaries. From now on, the Kosha mercenaries' business is the Enhan organization's business. Anyone who disobeys will become the Enhan organization's enemy. Shui Ying's words caused a commotion among the crowd. The strength of the Han organization was well known to everyone. Such a powerful organization, their armed forces could even be compared to a developed country. Fortunately, the Han organization had never intervened in any conflicts and had always remained neutral. However, today, they had made an exception for the boss of the Kosha mercenaries, slaying God. Chapter 1309. If the people present knew that this was Han's leader's way of expressing his love for Kosha mercenaries' boss, slaying God, they would have been dumbfounded. Just now, Miru still had a trace of a fluke heart, but at this moment, it was completely crushed. Kosha mercenaries and Han had joined forces. Even the internationally renowned Inferno Ring was annihilated just like that, let alone a small European arms tycoon like him. It's over, it's over. My life's work. It's over just like that. Miru understood his situation very well. He reached out his hands and howled at the sky like a madman. Then Miru sat on the ground, completely paralyzed. He was done for. The European arms tycoon would have a successor, but he had offended slaying God, the boss of Kosha mercenaries. Did he still have a chance to live? The people around were affected by Miru's howls, and their faces turned pale with shock. Lizard, I'll leave him to you, Yin Jian said to Snake. Lizard, after squinting at Miru. All right, Snake. Lizard nodded. Miru would not be able to escape death. It was Yin Jian's principle to eliminate the source of trouble. She would not give Miru a chance to make a comeback. Yin Jian had handed over some of the organization's matters to Snake, Lizard, and Tiger. Leopard. Although she was a hands-off boss, she was still the one who handled most of the important matters personally. Yin Jian was dragged away by CE before the third global underground tea party ended. The tea party started early in the morning and lasted until midnight. However, Yin Jian was dragged out by CE halfway through the tea party. Everyone present noticed this, but no one dared to speak carelessly. That was slaying God. CE did not care about Han's matters at all. He was even more thorough than Yin Jian in being a hands-off boss. CE did not say a word throughout the whole process. It was Shuang who did what he wanted. In fact, if Yin Jian didn't attend this year's tea party, CE definitely wouldn't have come. Of course, if Yin Jian came to participate, then everything would be different. Qingyu just finished dealing with what had happened and walked into the ball, seeing a mad dragon standing beside Snake. Lizard. Qingyu blinked and went over, turning to ask Snake. Lizard. Master. Where's Sister Jian? Snake. Lizard turned around and was about to speak when Shuang, who was not far away, snatched the right to speak. Since there was no one around Shuang, he told Qingyu generously, the young master has brought the young mistress out for a while. Qingyu did not pursue the matter further. Country B was surrounded by deserts. Even the lush green lawns were scarce and water was scarce. However, the location of the tea party was chosen in the most prosperous area of Country B, although the most prosperous area here was probably only the poorest area of Country Z. But generally speaking, the places with water sources were the most prosperous places for a country to develop. There was a stream nearby that was very long. There were even fishermen fishing on the stream. The stream was quite wide as well, so it was just right for a boat. CE held Yin Jian's hand all the way to the stream and saw a fisherman couple anchor their fishing boat by the shore. No matter how poor the locals were, they were not greedy. CE did not want to disturb the order of this place either. Therefore, CE pulled Yin Jian over and spoke to the fisherman standing by the shore in the fluent local dialect with a smirk. Yin Jian knew Country B's language. However, Country B was like Country Z. Every region had its own dialect. CE spoke to the fisherman couple in the local dialect, so Yin Jian did not understand. Chapter 1310. The fisherman's wife's words stunned Yin Jian for a moment. He said that they were husband and wife. Yin Jian was stunned. At the same time, she turned to look at CE. CE was very tall, and Yin Jian wasn't short, but she wasn't tall either. Standing beside CE, Yin Jian felt like a little bird that was dependent on him. When Yin Jian raised her head, she could just see CE's smooth chin. His handsome features warmed Yin Jian's heart. The fisherman's wife, who was this woman, covered her mouth when she saw this, and her smile became even more obvious. The woman smiled and reached out to pull Yun Jian onto the boat in a very hospitable manner. At the same time, she said to Yun Jian, "Newlyweds, the two of you are really compatible. This young man is so handsome and dotes on you a lot. Young lady, you're really lucky." As she spoke, the woman had already pulled Yun Jian onto the boat. She even reached out to pat the back of Yun Jian's clean hand. Then, she said to Yun Jian, "Sigh, to think that my husband didn't treat me so well in the past. If he treated me so well, I wouldn't be able to wait to empty out everything I have for him." The woman was joking with Yun Jian. However, after hearing the woman praise Ce, Yun Jian was stunned again. She turned to look at Ce, her eyes filled with great confusion. What exactly did he say to make the fisherman's wife praise him like this? Seeing that Yun Jian had turned to look at him, Ce smiled at Yun Jian. It was the kind of smile that came from the bottom of his heart. After laughing, Ce glanced at the fisherman and his wife, who were looking at him suspiciously from the corner of his eyes. Ce curled his lips and said to the fisherman and his wife in a dialect that Yun Jian couldn't understand, "She can't leave me. She gets shy when she's 1 meter away from me." When the fisherman and his wife heard this, they said, "Oh," in a delaying tone. Then, the fisherman's wife reached out to pat the back of Yun Jian's hand and said to Yun Jian in country bees language that Yun Jian could understand, "Don't be afraid. Auntie and uncle aren't bad people." With that, the fisherman's wife praised Ce a few more times. Yun Jian was baffled by what she heard. She really wanted to know what Ce had said to the fisherman and his wife. However, in front of the fisherman and his wife, the fisherman's wife, as paddles, paddles as paddle, and or knots paddle as paddles. Whenever Ce said a few words, the fisherman's wife would turn to Yun Jian and praise Ce. Yun Jian didn't really understand. Instead, she turned to glare at Ce with a pout, but what she got in return was Ce's innocent, handsome face. This was the first time that Yun Jian had suffered setback. She had never been fooled like today because she didn't understand the local dialect. There were many local dialects in the world. If all of them were added together, it would be impossible to count them all. Yun Jian couldn't possibly learn all the dialects in the world in just over a decade. However, she didn't expect Ce to know this town's dialect. Just as she was thinking this, the boat suddenly swayed. Then Ce, who was sitting beside Yun Jian, accidentally fell onto Yun Jian. He suddenly fell onto Yun Jian's body and pressed Yun Jian against the paddle. This time, the fisherman and his wife quickly averted their eyes. After Ce accidentally pressed Yun Jian against the paddle and was pushed up by Yun Jian, the fisherman's wife chuckled and said in a language that Yun Jian from country B could understand. Chapter 13:11. The fisherman's wife's words caused Yun Jian's face to turn bright red. Ce didn't reply, but she enjoyed this feeling very much. When the fisherman's wife saw that Yun Jian was shy, she walked over and pulled Yun Jian to the other side of the boat. At the stern of the boat, which was 3 meters away from Ce and the fisherman, she pulled Yun Jian's hand and whispered to Yun Jian, "Little girl, don't be shy. Little girl, don't be shy, and don't think that Annie is long-winded. You don't know, but the man that Annie teaches is the only one in our town who doesn't cheat. Annie sees that we hit it off, so Annie will teach you how to discipline men." As she spoke, the fisherman's wife looked over at Ce, who was sitting at the bow of the boat, and the fisherman's figure, who was paddling. When she saw that Ce and the fisherman weren't looking over, the fisherman's wife began to teach Yun Jian her sure-kill technique. The fisherman's wife moved her head closer to Yun Jian's ear, and Yun Jian didn't resist. Then, the fisherman's wife's words slowly drifted out. "Auntie is telling you, women, you can do whatever you want, but once you're in bed, you have to serve your man with all your might. Don't be shy." Yun Jian was listening to everything the fisherman's wife said, but once she thought of herself and Ce after she finished listening to them, Yun Jian's face couldn't help but turn red, and her heart thumped wildly. When the fisherman's wife pulled Yunjin back to the bow of the boat, where Ce and the fisherman were, and personally handed Yunjian's hand to Ce, the fisherman's wife looked at Yunjian with a you and I know look. She just wanted Yunjian and Ce to have fun in bed. When she thought of this, Yunjian lowered her head, and her face turned even redder. What did you guys talk about? To make matters worse, Ce was going to whisper in Yunjian's ear. Nothing. Ce went to Yunjian's ear. Yunjian was numbed by the airflow from Ce's words, and she gently pushed Ce. Xiao Jian, you become naughty. Ce smirked as he stared at her. His stare made Yunjian even more bashful. At this time, the boat went into a cave, and the fisherman and his wife stood in front of the boat, rowing. Both of them were very careful when they passed through the cave. After all, if they made a mistake, it was very likely that they would capsize in the cave. After all, there were a lot of sizes, and they were very united. People's rescue was the fisherman's life. However, if the boat capsized in the cave, the vagrants would not be able to see it at all, even if they screamed for help. Therefore, the fisherman and his wife were rowing the boat seriously with their backs facing Yunjian and Ce. The moment they passed the cave, Ce suddenly bent down and pressed Yunjian's head with one hand while he pulled Yunjian's head closer to him with the other. However, he bent down and kissed her little mouth that didn't have time to react. It was an exciting action since the fisherman and his wife were standing not too far away. It was not like there was no light in the cave. If the fisherman's wife saw her and Ce doing it right in front of them, would it not prove that she and Ce were burning with desire and thirst? Yunjian pushed Ce a few times, but Ce stayed where he was and kissed her on the lips. It was only when they were about to leave the cave and the fisherman's wife turned around that Yunjian pushed Ce away. However, because she pushed a little too hard and both of them were inexperienced, their lips were pushed away in time when they pushed Ce away, making a muffled sound. The sound made Yunjian straighten her back. Chapter 13:12. The fisherman's wife's question made Yunjian, who had straightened her back, shake her head and answer, I didn't hear you. Yunjian was the most obedient now. Ce's heart itched at the sight. He felt like he should hold Xiao Jian in his arms and not let anyone see her beauty. Because her beauty was his. It could only be his. It's probably the fishes in the stream, kissing in heat. There's a lot of fishes in this stream. It's summer now, and the fishes are all out. They're in heat now. The fisherman explained with a laugh. Then, he rowed the oar again. There was no end to the stream, but the spot where the fisherman and his wife usually rowed and fished was already at the end. Since the fisherman and his wife did not know if there would be other dangers over there, they did not plan to continue rowing. You two have to live a good life. When they bid farewell to Yunjian and Ce, the fisherman and his wife leaned against each other affectionately as they watched Yunjian and Ce and waved at them. The fisherman's wife said in a friendly manner. The fisherman and his wife were adamant that they did not want a single cent from Yunjian and Ce. They even said that they were bringing Yunjian and Ce along the way. Yunjian and Ce thanked the fisherman and his wife. When they were about to leave, the fisherman's wife even asked them to stay with a grin. You two really don't need to stay at my place for a night. My house's soundproofing is really the best within a 10-mile radius. The fisherman's wife's words made Yunjian blush again. Ce turned down the offer without hesitation. It was only then that Yunjian and Ce headed back. Since Yunjian and Ce had come out in the afternoon, it took them almost the entire afternoon to travel from upstream to downstream. When they returned to the ball, it was already time for dinner. However, Yunjian and Ce did not plan to have dinner here. They planned to return to Country Z's Longmen City directly. Ce had sent a helicopter to return to Country Z with Yunjian. Snow Eagle, Snake, Lizard, and Mad Dragon had to stay and return the next day after the ball ended. Before they left, Yunjian met Doya and Charlotte. Doya and Charlotte had simply covered Maina's body with a white cloth and tried their best to piece her together. The parts that were damaged by Mira could never be recovered. When Yunjian went to meet Doya and Charlotte, Both of them were kneeling in front of the white cloth that covered Mayina's body without uttering a word. Yunjin went over and gently placed her hands on Doya and Charlotte's shoulders. After 2 seconds of silence, she said, "Only when you become stronger can you protect the people you want to protect." Hearing Yunjin's voice, Doya turned to look at her. Doya could hear the slight sadness in her voice. Doya asked in return, "You're so strong. Will there be times when you can't protect the people you want to protect?" Hearing Doya's question, Yunjin suddenly clenched her fists. The death of the little girl and her younger brother in her past life was still vivid in her mind. Yunjin released her fists quickly without any change in her expression. Silence, dead silence. Just when Doya thought that Yunjin would not speak, she suddenly heard her reply solemnly, "Yes." She was strong, but she was not God. She was not omnipotent. Even she, slaying God, would make mistakes. "I heard that you're going to country him first before reporting to the mercenary group." Yunjin broke the silence. This time, it was Charlotte who spoke. Her eyes were dull, and her lips were pale, as if she was reminiscing about the past. Country M is Na's hometown. She was abducted by an assassin organization when she was 15. We met in the organization. She told me a long time ago that she had family, but she didn't want to drag them down with her identity as an assassin. She once said that if she couldn't wait until she became strong enough to go home and die before she could, she asked me to bring her back to her hometown. Chapter 13:13. If Yunjin lowered her head to look at Charlotte, she could see the glint of clarity in the girl's eyes that glinted in determination. Charlotte forced herself to sound normal, but her hoarse voice betrayed her emotions. She clenched her fists tightly as she stared at Mayina's body that was covered by the white cloth. Suddenly, a teardrop silently flowed down from the corner of Charlotte's eye, sinking into the dust. She shed tears because of Mayina's death and for herself, who was still living in such a cruel world. "Yunjin, I'll definitely become a powerhouse. I'm grateful that you've avenged Mayina and given Doya and I the chance to join the Kosha mercenaries." Charlotte wiped her tears away and stood up. She turned around and looked straight at Yunjin. "You don't have to thank me. You should be thanking yourself." Yunjin gave Charlotte a nonchalant smile before she turned and walked out. She did not help Doya and Charlotte for no reason. Doya and Charlotte were good seedlings. She allowed them to join the Kosha mercenaries to nurture them so that they could be used by the Kosha mercenaries in the future. She was not a saint. Of course, if Doya and Charlotte betrayed the Kosha mercenaries one day, she promised that she would kill them personally. Not all of the international bigwigs were present at this underground tea party, but it was undeniable that many bigwigs were present. Yunjin and Si did not join the party and left the rest to Snake, Lizard, Qingyu, and Shuang. Si sent a helicopter to bring Yunjin back to Country Z overnight. It took some time to return to Country Z. Other than the pilot, there were only Yunjin and Si in the helicopter. At this moment, the pilot of the helicopter was like a blind and deaf person. He didn't dare and wouldn't turn his head to look behind him. Of course, this fueled a certain someone's ambition. Si sat beside Yunjin, his body pressed tightly against Yunjin's side, enjoying the girl's soft and beautiful touch. When Si leaned over, Yunjin's cheeks flushed. When Si's large palm covered her small hand, Yunjin stepped back slightly since the pilot was still sitting in front of them. Yunjin's shyness tickled Si's heart. Si grabbed Yunjin's hand and pulled her into his embrace. "Xiao Jian." Si's low, magnetic voice rang. Yunjin was pulled into Si's embrace. Feeling Si's firm chest, she thought it was his fresh scent. Since there were other people around, she pushed Si. Don't. There's someone here." Yunjin's voice was even more misleading. Just as she said that, Si pressed Yunjin's head down and kissed her on the lips. No one saw the murderous glint that flashed across the pilot's eyes in the pilot's seat. In the next second, just as Si kissed Yunjin, the pilot flipped his hand and a machete appeared in his hand. Chapter 13:14. The pilot's actions were so sudden that there was no time to react. However, Ce, who had just kissed Yunjian, suddenly reacted. He immediately moved away from Yunjian's tender lips and kicked the pilot viciously towards the left side of the helicopter door. Yunjian had already reacted. She followed closely behind Ce and pulled open the helicopter door at the same time. The pilot who had tried to assassinate Yunjian and Ce had never expected that Yunjian and Ce would still be so vigilant despite being so lovey-dovey. Yunjian pulled open the helicopter door at the same time. The pilot was kicked out of the helicopter by Ce. Then, the pilot fell from a few thousand meters in the air, like a kite with a broken string. Yunjian could only hear a blood-curdling scream before it disappeared into the clouds. No one had expected the pilot to suddenly assassinate her and Ce. However, Yunjian and Ce weren't surprised. They were already used to such a life. However, what shocked Yunjian was that she hadn't discussed this with Ce beforehand. The two of them had actually worked together to kick the pilot out of the helicopter door. Just as he was thinking about this, a series of rapid beeping sounds suddenly rang out. Yunjian's eyes darkened and her expression changed slightly. Ce's tall figure was already in the pilot's seat. His slender fingers were typing a series of English buttons on the helicopter's controls. Ce's expression darkened slightly. This helicopter has been injected with the latest bomb. In 2 minutes and 49 seconds, it will ignite the engine and explode on the spot. Since the pilot had dared to assassinate Yunjian and Ce in the helicopter, he must have been prepared to die. There were many puppet assassins in this world. These puppet assassins were trained by certain organizations or important figures. These puppet assassins have been thoroughly brainwashed. At the same time, their greatest characteristic was that they were willing to sacrifice their own lives in order to kill their targets. This was because they had been implanted with the belief that sacrifice was glorious. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to understand this. However, these puppet assassins only obeyed their master's orders. The pilot had most likely listened to someone's orders and was determined to die together with Ce and Yunjian. Yunjian skillfully searched the helicopter for a parachute but didn't find anything. "There are no parachutes here," Yunjian said. However, she wasn't surprised. Since someone wanted her and Ce dead, they definitely wouldn't have prepared a parachute for them. This helicopter had been sent directly by an Hun's organization by Ce. This also meant one thing. An Hun was a traitor. But this wasn't the time to talk about it. "I'll force the helicopter to the lowest point and prepare to jump off," Ce said as he skillfully controlled the helicopter to descend. Ce and Yunjian both knew how to pilot a helicopter. For people like them, piloting a helicopter was just a basic lesson. "Okay," Yunjian nodded after hearing Ce's words. At this moment, the helicopter's door opened. Yunjian stood in front of the door and grabbed the handle. In just a short while, Ce had forced the helicopter to descend from a few thousand meters to a few hundred meters above the ground. "There's a lake over there. We'll jump on the count of 3. Ce changed the direction of the helicopter to a lake. Then, he stood behind Yunjian and wrapped his arms around her waist. At this moment, there were still 10 seconds before the bomb exploded. This was the fastest speed possible. They had to control the helicopter and jump from a few thousand meters above the ground in less than 3 minutes. If it was someone else, they would have been at a loss. Chapter 13:15. 3. Ce started counting. Just as Ce counted to 3, he suddenly changed his tone and changed the number from 3 to 1. As he spoke, Ce hugged Yunjian's slender waist from behind and jumped down for the helicopter with Yunjian in his arms. At this moment, they were less than 10 meters away from the surface of the lake. The bomb on the helicopter was about to explode. If Yunjian and Ce didn't jump down by now, the helicopter would explode. When a helicopter exploded, there would be a strong momentum. If one was not dozens of meters away from the helicopter, it was very likely that one would be directly blown to death by the momentum of the helicopter explosion. Even if they were tens of meters away, it wasn't guaranteed that they would be safe. Therefore, they had to jump down before the bomb exploded. Otherwise, the the probability of death was as high as 99.9%. The moment Ce hugged Yunjian and jumped down from the helicopter, Yunjian felt that his sturdy back was shielding her from any danger. Ce purposely stood with his back facing Yunjian and jumped down from the helicopter. Just a few seconds after they jumped down, the helicopter behind them that was smashing toward the center of the lake exploded. There was also a deafening boom sound, which scared the surrounding residents into thinking that it was an earthquake. One by one, they ran out of their homes. Ce groaned. He hugged Yunjian's body tightly and jumped into the water with Yunjian. Ce's front was tightly pressed against Yunjian's back. After they fell into the water, he grabbed Yunjian's small hand and swam towards the lakeside with Yunjian. The loud explosion just now had attracted a lot of attention from the surrounding residents. Now, the lakeside was filled with foreigners to Yunjian and Ce. However, no one was willing to help at this moment. After all, the locals naturally didn't dare to help these two people who came out of nowhere and caused such a huge commotion. At this moment, Ce had already pulled Yunjian to the shore as fast as she could. The people standing around were a little scared and didn't dare to step forward. This was just a village, and it was 7 or 8 o'clock at night. There were no streetlights around. The surrounding people were using torches to illuminate the area. It was clear that this place was not far from Country B, but Yunjian and Ce did not know where it was. However, it was clear that this place was not particularly rich at first glance. Moreover, the lighting here was still primitive torches. After Ce and Yunjian came ashore, Yunjian finally saw Ce clearly. He was still wearing the white short-sleeved shirt that Yunjian had bought for him, but at this moment, the back of the white short-sleeved shirt was already soaked in blood. Yunjian suddenly realized that when Ce jumped out of the helicopter just now, his back was facing the helicopter. He used his body to hug her tightly and protect her at the same time. He didn't let her get hit by the debris and the strong impact of the explosion. However, the price he paid was that his back was bleeding profusely. She could imagine how painful it was just by looking at it. However, Ce didn't even cry out in pain. He just hugged Yunjian. In fact, if Ce hadn't protected her, she wouldn't have gotten hurt at all. Yunjian would have at most suffered some minor injuries from flying out of the helicopter and some scrapes from the debris. However, Ce's actions just now had prevented her from getting hurt at all. He would rather get hurt himself than let her get hurt in the slightest. Yunjian didn't know what to say at this moment. She looked at Ce's handsome face, which didn't even frown. Yunjian wasn't good at expressing her feelings, but at this moment, she was so touched that she would agree to anything he wanted her to do without hesitation. Chapter 13:16. Now was not the time to talk about this. Yunjian stood up and looked around before asking in fluent English, "What's the matter? Does anyone have a knife, hot water, or a towel? Lend it to me, and I'll thank you handsomely in the future." The most important thing now was to deal with the injury on Ce's back. Ce did not treat the injury on his back as an injury at all. Despite the stinging pain, Ce acted like he was not injured at all. Instead, he stood up and pulled Yunjian to check her up and down. He was relieved when he saw that Yunjian was unharmed. As for the injury on his back, it was nothing. Yunjian asked in English because she did not know where they were. English was the world's common language. No matter how poor this place was, there should be someone who knew English. In spite of it, Yunjian was right. There was someone who knew English here. Just as Yunjian finished her question, a young girl around the age of 12 or 13 came out and told Yunjian in the same English as she looked at Yunjian, "Jejia, I have one at home. Let's go to my house." The girl was pretty with big eyes and a small nose, but she was dressed in rags. Thanks." Yunjian nodded and followed the girl to her house with Ce. Yunjian used a knife to remove all the shrapnel from Ce's back and treated all his wounds. The strands of hair that flew out from the explosion of the helicopter were so strong that they sank into Ce's back. The wound was deep as well. If an ordinary person were to suffer such a severe injury, they would have died long ago. When Yunjian treated Ce's wounds, he kept his head turned to look at her. Even when the pain was unbearable, he did not cry out. When Yunjian used the crude equipment as surgical tools for the operation, He suddenly told Yunjian, "Xiao Jian, let's get married." Yunjian was stunned. Then she said, "We're not at the age of marriage yet." Moreover, hadn't they already signed a marriage contract in the Yulong continent? Yunjian's cheeks flushed slightly. "Let's go abroad to get a marriage certificate. Country R will be enough." He listed a bunch of countries where girls could get married at the age of 16. In the end, Ce said, "When we're of age, we'll go back to country Z to get a marriage certificate." He couldn't wait to pluck her beauty. Yunjian lowered her head, but she was actually avoiding Ci's gaze out of shyness. After a while, Yunjian said softly, "Okay, as long as you get better soon, we'll get married." Yunjian agreed. He was already so hurt because of her. She thought about what Ce had done for her. Yunjian felt that she would give Ce anything she wanted. Although the tools were temporary and could not even be considered surgical tools, the operation was a success. Just as Yunjian came out of the straw hut, the little girl who had lent her the tools came up to her. "Jie, brother should be all right?" The girl asked obediently. "He's fine," Yunjian said and thanked her. Yunjian saw that the straw hut was filled with people. No doubt, they were all here to watch the show. When she came back just now, Yunjian asked the girl where they were. Yunjian also found out that they were in Country B, but they were about to leave the country. It was the border between Country B and another country. Just as the girl finished her question, a careless and ugly woman came out from the side. Glaring at the girl fiercely, she walked over and grabbed the girl's ear, scolding her in Country B's language that Yunjian could understand. Chapter 13:17. The woman was very ugly. Her face was covered with red pimples, and her nose was flat. She was so fat that she looked like a woman who could barely walk. She grabbed the little girl's ear and scolded her. Then, she slapped the little girl in front of everyone. The slap caused the little girl to fall to the ground. There were no dialects in this village. Everyone used Country B's language to communicate. Therefore, Yunjian could understand the discussions of the people around her. After seeing the little girl being slapped by the woman in front of everyone, the surrounding people began to whisper. However, Yunjian heard everything. "Lily is really pitiful. She lost her mother when she was young. Her father's really too much. He didn't take care of Lily since she was young and didn't earn money to support the family. All these years, Lily went out to work to earn money for the family's expenses. What the hell is going on? Her father doesn't earn money and goes out to play every day. That's fine, but he even married a hag. Sigh. This way, not only does Lily have to earn money herself, she also has to be beaten every day. Isn't that right? Do you know about this? 2 days ago, this hag accepted the betrothal gift from the neighboring village's village chief, Lameda. Hey, you don't know. Lameda is already 56 years old. One of his feet is already near the edge of his coffin. Lily is only 13 years old. If Lily marries him. Lily was the little girl who kindly brought Yunjian and Ce home and provided Yunjian with the things she needed to complete the surgery. She even arranged for Yunjian and Ce to stay in the thatched hut. Lily's clothes were very simple. At most, they could only cover some of the important parts of her body. It was already unimaginably tattered. After hearing the words of the surrounding people, Yunjian finally understood Lily's background and situation. Yunjian would never forget that Lily had helped her just now. Talk. What nonsense. Get the hell away from me. Lily's stepmother, who was also known as the hag, turned her head and shouted at the crowd, cursing them with a few words of abuse. After scolding, the woman turned her head and twisted Lily's ear. Then, she turned her head to look at Yunjian. She didn't do anything to Lily again. Instead, she said angrily to Yunjian, "Get the hell out of my house. My family can't afford to raise you too." As she spoke, the woman scolded Lily in a low voice. "Bah, you useless thing. Don't you think you've caused enough trouble?" This time, he actually dares to bring back 2 living adults for this old lady. This old lady can't afford to raise them. In fact, the family's livelihood depended on Lily moving bricks to earn money. But all the money went to Lily's stepmother, a woman named Ya. It was the woman's name. It was a very pleasant name, but when it was applied to a woman, it was unbearable. No. Don't drive my sister and brother away, okay? I can earn more money. I can move bricks a few more times. I can do more work. Please don't drive my sister and brother away, okay? My sister and brother fell into the river. My brother is seriously injured. They won't have anywhere to go. When Lily heard this, she immediately knelt down and begged Ya. Lily didn't call Ya mother or mother. Lily was a very kind girl. Usually, when she saw injured animals like rabbits in the mountains, she would bring them home. When the animals recovered, she would send them back to the mountains. Lily's kindness was obvious to everyone. Ya was a very vicious woman. After hearing this, she ran to the side and pulled out a long rattan. Then, she rushed to Lily and waved her hand. They're pitiful, but I'm pitiful too. You wretched girl, useless thing. This old lady will whip you to death. As soon as the last word was spoken, Ya waved the rattan vines and whipped Lily's body. Lily was so scared that she closed her eyes. But the rattan didn't succeed in whipping Lily. A pair of white little hands grabbed the rattan that was waving in the air. Chapter 13:18. Hearing Yun Jian's words, Ya's eyelids twitched violently, especially when she saw Yun Jian's sharp eyes. Ya was fierce and unruly, but she had never seen such a terrifying, murderous intent in a little girl's eyes. Those eyes stared at her as if she wanted to kill her. After all, Ya was just a little woman in Country B. She was shocked by Yun Jian's stare, but then she pretended that she was not scared by Yun Jian. After Ya cleared her throat, she scolded Yun Jian back. Why should I let go just because you asked me to? Who do you think you are? You used my knife, water, and towel, and you think you're in the right? Oh God, how can there be such a shameless person in this world? Ya began to wail loudly in a mournful voice. However, she saw that Yun Jian had already pulled out the rattan. She waved it gently, and the rattan was directly caught by Yun Jian. Then, she whipped Ya hard. Ya fell to the ground after being whipped by the rattan. She took a few deep breaths. After being whipped to the ground, Ya actually did not feel any pain, but she began to shout loudly again. Oh God, you hit me. You killed me. My good intentions are not rewarded. If you say another word, I'll kill you right now. Yun Jian's words directly interrupted Ya's crying. However, Yun Jian threw away the rattan. She directly took out a dagger from her trouser pocket, then pulled the dagger out of the scabbard and threw it at Ya. Yun Jian did not use the butterfly knife because she did not need to use it to deal with this kind of person. At that moment, the saber flew over Ya's head without missing a single bit. Ya suddenly froze in shock. She stood there in a daze. She could clearly feel the knife flying over her head. The knife flew over Ya's head and stabbed into the soil behind Ya. This unique skill shocked the group of people around. Without a doubt, Yun Jian's move just now was really amazing. However, she saw Yun Jian pull Lily aside and walk to the side. He was frightened by Yun Jian. She didn't dare to make another move. At this time, Yun Jian had already pulled Lily to her room. Lily told Yun Jian a lot of things. Of course, she also talked about her background and where they were. Lily lowered her head when she talked about her background. She said to Yun Jian, my stepmother will sell me to someone else in a few days, but I already have someone I like. Lily said that the person she liked was also very poor. They had met when they were carrying bricks together. The boy she liked was 15 years old this year. He had gone to school before, so he knew a little English. Lily wanted to go to school, but she had no money. Therefore, when Lily knew English, she secretly learned it from a boy. Yun Jian asked Lily some questions and listened to Lily talk about her background. She closed her eyes and made up her mind. Yun Jian slept with Ce. The next day, Yun Jian was disturbed by a commotion outside the door. When she walked out, she saw 3 or 4 men trying to drag Lily away. At the front was an old man in his 50s or 60s with a cigar in his hand. He was old enough to be Lily's grandfather. This old man was the village chief of the neighboring village, Lameda. In this poor place, his family was very rich. Bah, useless thing. I really can't tolerate you for a day. Hurry up and leave. It's lucky for you to be able to follow Village Chief Lameda. You cursed at Lily. It was you who called Village Chief Lameda and asked him to take Lily away quickly. Village Chief Lameda had already taken a fancy to Lily. At this moment, he couldn't wait to press Lily under his body and beg for pleasure. Therefore, when he heard that you wanted to take Lily away, he came over early in the morning. Yin Jian saw Village Chief Lameda calling for people to drag Lily away. Seeing this scene, Yin Jian's eyes darkened again. Just as the 3 to 4 men were about to put Lily into a sack and forcefully take her away, a sharp female voice sounded. Her voice carried an irresistible majesty. Chapter 1319. Yun Jian's frivolous voice carried a trace of dignity that couldn't be underestimated. Even the few men standing in front of her trembled when they heard Yun Jian's words, but they quickly reacted. Who the hell is this? Lambada was originally smoking a cigar when he suddenly heard a female voice that he had never heard before. He was immediately stunned and turned to look at Yun Jian. Lily was already half stuffed into the sack. She was rolling around and wanted to come out to say something, but was stuffed back into the sack by the few men. Because her mouth was covered with black tape, she could only make muffled cries for help. Lambada was already impatient to make a move on Lily. Now that he suddenly heard Yun Jian's voice, he immediately looked over with a hateful expression. It's the people that my family brought back. Lambada, yesterday that woman even threatened me with a knife. I was threatened to take them in. You have to make a decision for me. This woman is too arrogant. My small family can't afford to raise them. This is going to cost us our lives. Chief Lameda, you seem to have found a savior in front of Lambada. She started to cry for help, just like a rude and unreasonable shrew who wanted to catch a thief and find someone to reason with. However, Lambada naturally didn't want to get involved in this muddy water. Lambada's goal was only Lily. Hey, you deal with this matter yourself. I don't have the authority to deal with the matters of your village. Lambada didn't take Yun Jian's words seriously. Instead, he waved his hand at you and impatiently pushed her away. Then Lambada waved his hand and signaled to 3 or 4 men to carry Lily, who was already in the sack, and leave. Didn't you hear what I said? Just as Lambada waved his hand and signaled to 3 or 4 men to carry Lily away, Yun Jian's voice faintly sounded again. This time, Lambada wasn't stunned by Yun Jian's sharp words like before. Instead, he felt that Yun Jian's words were like a joke. Go. What can a little girl like her do? Can she do anything to us? Lambada waved his hand and said disdainfully. When you saw that the village chief didn't care about her anymore, she became anxious and rushed forward to stop the village chief. Hey, village chief, you can't leave. If you leave, what should I do? Yes, village chief, you can't leave. Scram! Lambada pushed you away. Just as he was about to order his men to carry Lily away, a voice rang out from behind him. Lambada felt as if someone had kicked him in the back. Then Lambada very clearly felt that he was kicked to the ground. After Lambada was kicked to the ground, he caught a glimpse of a black shadow passing by him at the speed of light and going straight for his 3 or 4 men. Bang, bang, bang. The sound of 3 bodies falling to the ground could be heard. In the next second, the 3 men brought by Lambada were kicked to the ground by Yun Jian. Lambada reacted at this time and wanted to stand up. At this time, Yun Jian stretched out her leg and stepped on Lambada's back. Her cold voice sounded at the same time. I'll give you the money for Lily. Also, you better disappear from my sight immediately. Otherwise, I'll call Pierre over tomorrow and we'll have a good discussion. Yun Jian's words made Ya and Lambada straighten their backs. Pierre, wasn't he the president of Country B? Chapter 1320. As luck would have it, she did know Country B's president, Pierre. Looking at Ya and Lambada's shocked faces, Yun Jian was extremely calm. You know, Mr. President? Not only was he shocked, even Lambada, who was being stepped on by Yun Jian, trembled and asked Yun Jian in a horrified voice. Lambada was the head of a village after all, and you was just an ordinary woman from the countryside. Your shock was definitely greater than that of village chief Lameda. Looking at their shocked expressions, Yun Jian crossed her arms in front of her chest and stepped on Lambada's back with one foot. He's just a loser, Yun Jian said without exaggeration. Back then, Yun Jian had received a mission to kill the ministers under Country B's president, Pierre. At that time, Pierre had just become the president and needed the support of his ministers to strengthen his position. Yun Jian killed the ministers under Country B's president one after another, which almost drove Pierre to the brink of despair. Pierre was considered a capable person. After searching for a long time, he finally found Yun Jian. Then, he offered her a lot of money and begged Yun Jian not to kill his man. It was not an exaggeration to say that he knelt and begged her. That was because Country B could not find Yun Jian even if they mobilized all their military forces, let alone kill Yun Jian. Pierre did that because he was at his wit's end. Yun Jian had already completed the mission and planned to stop. However, Pierre had given her so many priceless treasures. How could she not accept them? Who could say no to money? Later on, Yun Jian accidentally heard from others that Country B's president, Pierre, was afraid that she would suffer from sequelae. There was once when someone mentioned the name Slaying God in front of Pierre. He was so frightened that he rolled off the dining table in a sorry state. After hearing Yun Jian's words, Lambada and the rest did not think that Yun Jian was joking at all. After all, everyone had seen Yun Jian's ability earlier. How could an ordinary little girl be so powerful? If it was an ordinary girl, with the actions of Lambada village chief just now, she would have been scared to the point of crying for her parents. Cough, cough. The village chief had no choice but to look at Yun Jian again. After staring at Yun Jian for 2 seconds, he said to Yun Jian weakly, "Do you really know the president?" Regardless of whether it was the village chief or the identity of the president was a figure that they would never see in their entire lives. Therefore, when they found out that Yun Jian knew the president, regardless of whether this matter was true or not, the attitude of the village chief and towards Yun Jian would be greatly reversed. Yun Jian had already lifted her foot from Lambada's back. At this moment, she was standing coldly to the side. "But you're just the president of B country. Do you need to talk nonsense?" Yun Jian said softly. The village chief's eyes immediately turned. He quickly ran over and kicked the 3 or 4 men who put Lily into the big sack, and then roared in a low voice, "Hurry up and let go! Let go!" The 3 or 4 men were shocked, but they quickly pulled Lily out of the sack, and then untied the black tape on her mouth. Lily took a few breaths loudly, but there was no trace of fear on her face. At this time, Lily's stepmother, also ran to Yun Jian. She changed her previous shrewish look, and now she even flattered Yun Jian. "It was my fault before. I deserve to be beaten. I deserve to be beaten. Don't hold a grudge. I have a sharp tongue, but a tofu heart. Yun Jian didn't listen to what you said. She took a step back and then said to you, "I'm not interested in your business. We will stay here for 2 days, and all the money used will be paid back double." Chapter 13:21. She was determined to get involved in Lily's affairs. Lily had helped her before, and Yun Jian had always been a vengeful person. Moreover, it was just a small matter to her, but to Lily, it was a major event in her life. Yun Jian lowered her eyes at the thought of this. He was still standing in front of Yun Jian. When she saw Yun Jian's lowered eyes, she felt a little afraid. It didn't matter if Yun Jian really knew the president of Country B. If this matter was true, she wouldn't be able to compensate for it, even if she had 100 heads. Yun Jian turned around and was about to enter the house, but she paused for a moment before turning to look at you. Her red lips curled up slightly, and her smile was a little strange. "I hope I never have the chance to see that scene again. Otherwise, I'll catch that old man Pierre tomorrow and have a good talk with you." After saying this, Yun Jian knew that her words were fatal to village chief Lambada and In other words, they were all afraid that she would really invite the president of Country B here. Therefore, Lily wouldn't be in danger for the time being. As for her and C.E. leaving the village, Yun Jian believed that after she lost contact with C.E. Snake, Lizard and Snow Eagle would definitely find the site of the plane crash and find this place very quickly. That was why Yunjian said that she would stay here for about 2 more days. After Yunjian entered the house, she closed the door. When village chief Lambada saw this, not only did he not stop her, he even heaved a huge sigh of relief. Then, village chief Lambada led his men and fled without even asking you for the money for the betrothal gift. Lily also heaved a huge sigh of relief, and he didn't dare to make things difficult for her. After Yunjian entered the house, she saw Ce sitting at the head of the bed and watching her enter the house. When Yunjian saw this, she walked over and sat beside Ce. Then, she stared at him for 2 seconds before shifting her gaze to his bare shoulders and back, and the hideous scar. She pursed her red lips and asked softly, "Does it still hurt?" She had already removed the shrapnel that pierced Ce's back when the plane exploded. However, his back was still covered in scars that were hard to look at. Ce had been injured before, but this time, it was purely because he did not want Yunjian to have any bruises, which was why he was heavily injured in exchange for it. Hearing Yunjian's slightly hoarse voice, Ce pulled Yunjian into his embrace with his bare chest. "It doesn't hurt," he said softly to Yunjian. His voice was so gentle that it didn't sound like Ce's usual style. The way he treated Yunjian was always different from the others. "Don't be like this in the future. You could have been fine, Yunjian was about to say something. Ce covered her mouth in time. Yunjian braced her palms against Ce's bare chest. She was afraid of touching the wound on Ce's back, so she dared not hug him back. Although the wound on Ce's back did not touch the heart or other organs, it hurt the most when it was a superficial wound. If an ordinary person was injured like this, they probably would not even dare to move. The slightest movement would cause unbearable pain. Ce, however, did not care. His favorite Xiao Jian was right in front of him. How could he hold himself back? That would be Ce kissed Yunjian's lips. Soon, both of them had unknowingly removed their clothes. Ce had even reached out to remove Yunjian's jeans. Just as he removed Yunjian's jeans, Ce saw that Yunjian's panties were stained with blood. Ce's brows furrowed deeply at the sight. Losing all of his emotions, he placed his hand on the bloodstain in Yunjian's panties and was about to pull it off as he muttered, "What are you doing?" Chapter 13:22. There was a hint of anger in Ce's words. It was the kind of anger that came from discovering that Yunjian was injured, but she did not tell him right away. Looking at Yunjian's underwear, it was covered in blood. Just by looking at it, Ce could tell that the depth of the wound was probably deeper than his. She did not even say anything. Ce reached out to tug at her wound angrily. Yunjian, who had not realized what was going on just now, suddenly snapped back to reality. Yunjian had never had a sense of timing when relatives visited. She had been on her period ever since she took over this body. In her previous life, Yunjian did not have a sense of timing when relatives visited either. Most of the time, it came when she was on a mission. Even when her period came, she still had to get into the water. Even if she had to fight a bloody battle, she had to complete her mission. In this regard, Yunjian had taken good care of herself after her rebirth. In spite of it, Yunjian had never had a sense of timing when relatives visited. It was always Qin Yuru who helped her prepare the things she needed to change into. This time, Yunjian was completely unprepared. She didn't even realize that her period had come at this time. What was even more awkward was that she did not bring sanitary pads with her. "Don't. It's not an injury." Yunjian pressed Ce's hand at once. In spite of it, her cheeks were flushed red, making Yunjian look even more embarrassed. "There's so much blood, It's not an injury?" Ce asked, raising his voice. Ce's brows were tightly knitted as he looked at Yunjian with worry written all over his face. Ce had always been a man of action. He had pinned Yunjian down on the bed with one hand and tugged at her underwear with the other. "Xiao Jian, you'll be mine sooner or later. I'll take a look, it's fine. Don't be scared." As Ce spoke, he had already pulled Yunjian's underwear off. Yunjian was so shy that she was about to curl into a ball. She quickly explained, It's a physiological phenomenon. It's not an injury. As long as it's a girl, it'll come. Yunjin swore that she had never been so embarrassed in her life. See, he did not even know this. Yunjin, however, could understand. See, he did not believe Yunjin's words. He even bent down to take a look. He checked Yunjin from top to bottom. Only then did he believe it. Yunjin had already sat back on the bed and put her clothes back on. See, he believed her now. He was a little embarrassed, but once he thought about how he had seen his Xiao Jian's cough. After a while, Si Yi walked out of the house. There were only Yunjin and Si Yi in the house. Yunjin's pants were stained with blood, so she could not go out. Si Yi's back was injured, but he could still help Yunjin get what she needed. Si Yi came out of the house and saw a group of country bees, rural women, sitting in the courtyard. He was here as well. When you saw Si Yi coming over, she stood up quickly. Si Yi was with Yunjin. Yunjin knew country bees president, so Ye's attitude toward Yunjin and Si Yi had changed completely. She dare not be rude to Si Yi and Yunjin anymore. After Ye stood up, Si Yi walked over without a change in expression on his aloof face. When he reached them, he asked, "Do you guys have sanitary pads?" The women who were enjoying the shade stared at Si Yi in disbelief when they heard him. This young man looked like a decent person and was ridiculously handsome. Why was his mind so dirty? What? Even you was stunned. Si Yi repeated himself bossily. "I need sanitary pads. I'll give you 2 minutes to hand them over." Chapter 1323. Even though Country Bee was poor, women were still very conservative about their private matters. Usually, they wouldn't mention it in front of men. Even if they mentioned it in front of women, they would only talk about it in private. In spite of it, which man was like Si Yi, putting aside the fact that he was a man, how could he ask such a simple question in front of everyone? There was a group of men in the distance who were enjoying the shade. Where did this young man come from? A woman blushed when she heard Si Yi's words. She was a little embarrassed. Yi quickly stood up. She didn't dare to provoke Yunjin now. Hence, she turned to Si Yi and said, I have it. Go back first. I'll bring it to you later." You just wanted Si Yi to hurry back to the house. When Si Yi heard that you would bring it to him, he walked towards Yunjin's house without looking back. After Si Yi's tall figure disappeared in front of everyone, you heaved a sigh of relief. Then, you said to the group of women standing behind her, "That was just a misunderstanding. Don't take it seriously." Now that Yunjin and Si Yi were living in her house, you felt that she had lost all face. However, you didn't dare to resist. I'll go take a look. You guys chat. You turned around and slipped away in front of everyone's eyes. In the house, Yunjin was sitting on the bed with her hands on the bed. When she saw Si Yi enter the house, she turned around and pursed her lips. Her face was still red. "Did you borrow it? She will bring it over." Si Yi walked towards Yunjin. He reached out and stroked Yunjin's hair. His eyes were filled with affection. Because Country Bee was poor, the women here made their own sanitary pads. Some even recycled them. However, after knowing that Yunjin was acquainted with Country Bee's president, you didn't dare to act rashly. Hence, you brought Yunjin a very clean one that no one had used before. After Yunjin had changed into a pair of loose pants, Si Yi pulled Yunjin outside the house to cool off. Si Yi didn't look embarrassed at all, but Yunjin's face was red. Si Yi was holding Yunjin's small hand and squeezing her hand his big palm. At this moment, they were sitting on one of the few wooden benches in the courtyard, as leisurely as an old lady and an old man in the countryside. If Adam were to see them like this, he might laugh out loud and say that his young master and young madam were living the lives of old people. At this moment, a group of people suddenly rushed into the courtyard. Yunjin turned her head slightly and saw that the person leading the team was the village chief of Lameda. The village chief, Lambada, was leading a group of villagers towards Yunjin and Si Yi with hoes in their hands. She said that she knows our president, but that's a lie. I've already sent people to ask, how could our president meet such a small figure? Damn it. She dared to treat us like this yesterday. Today we'll kill her. Whoever knocks her down will get this woman. Today, Lambada had brought a group of villagers over. At this moment, he was glaring fiercely at Yunjian, as if he wanted to get back at Yunjian for yesterday's anger. Hearing this, Si's face instantly darkened. At this moment, a huge helicopter flew from afar to a nearby lawn. The sound of the helicopter's wings was deafening. When it was about to land on the ground, the helicopter's door opened. A handsome man with a scary scar on his neck poked his head out. He was carrying a short and fat middle-aged man, and he threw him out of the helicopter. After being thrown out, the man landed on the ground. The surrounding people were a little suspicious. Chapter 1324. The short, plump, middle-aged man who was thrown down from the helicopter by the handsome man with a deep scar on his neck was Country B's president, Pierre. Pierre was Country B's president. Village Chief Lambada had someone above him. When President Pierre traveled in the past, the village chief had caught a glimpse of him from afar. That was how Village Chief Lambada recognized Pierre as their country's president. Country B was small in size, but had a large population, which was one of the main reasons for the country's poverty. Country B was also a country. To Village Chief Lambada and the rest, Pierre was perhaps an important figure that they would never see in their lifetime. Therefore, Village Chief Lambada and the rest were taken aback when they saw Pierre out of the blue, especially when Village Chief Lambada and the rest had denied the fact that Yunjian knew Pierre. Now, they saw a strange man throwing Pierre down from the helicopter. Seeing this, Mayor Lameda and the rest of the villagers could not help wondering if the man with the scar on his neck who had thrown Pierre off the helicopter was in cahoots with Yunjian. Just as they thought about it, Pierre, who was thrown to the ground, had already gotten up. Village Chief Lambada and the rest were still in a daze. Snow Eagle, who was standing on the helicopter, jumped down handsomely from the helicopter that was at least 5 meters above the ground and landed steadily on the ground. After Snow Eagle jumped down Snake. Lizard followed suit. You found him. You should let me go now, Pierre asked weakly as he watched Snow Eagle and Snake. Lizard walked past him. He shook his fat body and asked weakly. However, Snow Eagle and Snake. Lizard ignored him. Snow Eagle and Snake. Lizard went to Yunjian right in front of Village Chief Lambada and the rest. Snow Eagle went to Yunjian and Ce and greeted them respectively. Young madam, young master. Snake. Lizard, on the other hand, greeted them directly, Sister Jian. Village Chief Lambada and the rest knew that Snow Eagle and Snake. Lizard were most likely Yunjian and Ce's men from the moment Snow Eagle and Snake. Lizard appeared. Therefore, he wasn't too surprised at this moment, but he was still sweating in his heart. Especially Lambada Village Chief. One must know that just now Lambada Village Chief had brought all the villagers with hoes to look for Yunjian. That was because Village Chief Lambada had heard from someone. That person said that if a nobody like Yunjian knew President Pierre, how could she appear in such a small place? That person said that Yunjian was most likely bluffing. Therefore, Lumamada rushed over with his men. He tried to cause trouble for Yunjian. Yesterday, Yunjian had interrupted him, and her words were not so pleasant. The village chief had always remembered this in his heart. However, the moment he saw Pierre, he felt as if he had accidentally offended someone he shouldn't have. Therefore, Lambada swallowed hard and didn't dare to say anything else. Seeing the two people who had forcibly kidnapped him call out to Yunjian and Ce irrespectfully, Pierre wasn't stupid. He immediately reacted. Yunjian and Ce, you were most likely their bosses. Pierre stuck out his belly. After all, he was the president of Country B, so naturally, he couldn't show any fear. Therefore, Pierre ordered Yunjian and Ce, who are you? Why did you kidnap me? I order you to quickly release me. Otherwise, this is my country. When my soldiers chase you here, they will definitely. Before Pierre could finish, Yunjian, who stood opposite him, snorted and said, You're not the only one. Pierre, looks like you still haven't learned your lesson from 4 years ago. Do you need me to kill all your ministers before you know your place? Yunjian had also just debuted not long ago. Her mission was to assassinate Pierre's ministers. At that time, Pierre was so scared that he couldn't eat. Pierre hadn't heard a young girl's tone in a long time that could reach such a level. This young girl's tone, why was it so similar to the woman in his memory who had killed countless of his ministers and finally gave away half of the country's gold and silver treasures? Chapter 1325. As Pierre spoke, he was so scared that he sat down on the ground. Pierre saw Yun Jin gently raise her right index finger. She put her right index finger on her lips and made a shoot gesture that made Pierre feel that Yun Jin was very strange. Pierre was so scared that he sat down on the ground. It wasn't because he felt that Yun Jin's gesture was very strange. It was because of Yun Jin. The shoot gesture she made just now was exactly the same as the gesture of the woman he had always been afraid of, who had even disturbed him for several years. Even when he saw her in his dreams, he would be scared awake. This also meant that the girl standing in front of him was indeed. Pierre didn't dare to say the word kill again, because Yun Jin made a should gesture. At this time, he saw Yun Jin gently curve her lips. She looked at Pierre with a smile that hit a dagger. Sure, you didn't see anything, so nothing happened today. Otherwise, I don't recommend revisiting the old events of 4 years ago. Yun Jin gave people the feeling that they felt their hair stand on end. It was a feeling of horror that came from the bottom of their hearts. Pierre couldn't help but shake his fat body, then swallowed his saliva. He really didn't dare to say anything. Their country bee's president actually knew Yun Jin. And looking at the situation, why did it seem that he was very afraid of Yun Jin? The village chief, yeah, and the women and men standing around were all dumbfounded. Let's go. Yun Jin wasn't interested in what happened next. She looked up at Ci's handsome side profile and then said. As they spoke, the two of them walked over to the helicopter. A rope hung down from the helicopter. When the helicopter wasn't on the ground, people would pull this rope and climb up. Yun Jin and Ci walked side by side to the helicopter. She suddenly saw a timid girl hiding in the distance and looking at her. It was Lily. Lily was looking at her from afar with a grateful gaze. Seeing Yun Jin turn to look at her, Lily waved at Yun Jin and said softly, "Sister, goodbye." Yun Jin raised her eyebrows. She turned to look at Pierre and then pointed at Lily. "Pierre, I like this little girl very much. I've already acknowledged her as my little sister. If I hear any dissatisfaction from her the next time I come to Country B, I believe that with my ability, it won't be a problem to bomb Country B easily. It would be easy for the Kosham mercenaries to bomb Country B." Pierre was so scared that he quickly knelt down and kowtowed to Yun Jin. "How would I dare? I will definitely treat her as my own daughter." With Pierre's words, Yun Jin believed that Lily would definitely be happy. Pierre knew her rules. Yun Jin turned to look at Lily, only to see Lily looking at her and winking at her. Seeing this, Yun Jin smiled faintly. Then, under everyone's gaze, she reached out and grabbed the rope hanging from the helicopter. In a few moments, she flew onto the helicopter. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to do this move so skillfully without practicing for 3 to 4 years. Therefore, the surrounding people were all dumbfounded. After C.E., Shuang, and Snake, Lizard boarded the helicopter. Shuang flipped over to pilot the helicopter. Shuang quickly left with Yun Jin and C.E. As for the helicopter, there would naturally be someone to deal with it. Of course, this wasn't something that Yun Jin and C.E. could handle. It wasn't until Yun Jin and C.E. were far away that Pierre heaved a sigh of relief. Then, Pierre forced a smile at Lily. Pierre waved at Lily. He was so polite that Lomada and you felt a little awkward. "Little girl, let me be your father in the future, okay? Do you want to live in the palace with me? I will definitely treat you very, very well." Chapter 1326. There were only 4 people in the helicopter: Shuang, Snake, Lizard, Yun Jin, and C.E. Qingyu did not come. She was still at the tea party in Country B, planning to accompany Doya and Charlotte to send Maina's body back to Country M for burial before bringing the two girls back to the Kosha mercenaries. After all, the Kosha mercenaries were hidden. If Qin Yu did not stay to lead the way, Doya and Charlotte would not even know where the Kosha mercenaries were. Moreover, Doya and Charlotte did not possess astounding hacking skills like Yunjian. If they were to hack and search for the Kosha mercenaries' specific location, they would need to possess skills as strong as Yunjian's to locate the Kosha mercenaries. However, they did not. They did not even know what a hacker was. Because of what happened before, the time to return to China was delayed. When Yunjian and Si Yi returned to the country, it was already the 3rd of August. After sending Yunjian back to Longmen City, Si Yi returned to Anhun with Shuang. Yunjian was about to start school. Si Yi had planned to go to Min City with Yunjian. Yunjian was about to undergo a month of military training, while Si Yi would go straight to Senior 3 when he enrolled, so he did not have to go through military training. He wanted to see Yunjian all the time. In spite of it, Si Yi had to return to Anhun personally to investigate who was the one who wanted him and Xiao Jian dead this time. Was it the mysterious person from Yulong mainland? Or was it someone else? This was a matter of life and death. He could not afford to be careless. Moreover, he was certain that there was a traitor in Anhun. Before he found Anhun's traitor, Si Yi would not give up. Hence, Si Yi could not say when he would return. Before they left, Si Yi hugged Yunjian and told her, Xiao Jian, I'll definitely bring our overseas marriage certificate back the next time I come back. At that time, it would be reasonable for him to want to do something to her. Of course, when he was looking for the traitor of Anhun, he could also sneak into the military training area to look for Yunjian. If Adam was standing here right now, he would probably clap his hands and shout that if his young master could resist sneaking off to Yunjian's military training grounds to look for her for a month, he would eat shit in front of Xue Ying and the other two. If Adam was here and Si Yi heard his inner monologue, Si Yi would probably slap *T on Adam's head. After Si Yi left, Yunjian prepared to officially report to the Min City Military Academy. Xiao Jian, you have to take good care of your body when you go to school. You have to adjust your nutrition. Vegetarian and meat dishes have to be balanced. Don't be picky and eat everything. Girls your age, don't learn from others and try to lose weight. Let me tell you, Xiao Jian isn't fat. Don't lose weight like other girls. You have to eat your fill. Look at how skinny you are. Since Yunjian was going to school, Qin Yiru pulled Yunjian to sit on the sofa. Qin Yiru arranged a suitcase of clothes, placing them neatly into the suitcase and nagging at Yunjian. Yunjian finally lost the ability to listen to Qin Yiru's nagging. Although she had already taken Qin Yiru as her beloved mother now, she had no choice but to accept her as her beloved mother. I know, Mom. Yunjian rubbed her forehead and interrupted Qin Yiru. Okay, I won't say more then. We have to get ready to leave now. All right, Xiao Jian, did you bring enough change? Do you want me to get you some? You're taking the bus to Min City today, and you'll have to take the bus back. I'll get you some change. Wait for me. I'll get it for you. Chapter 13:27. Qin Yiru was very naggy now, but she was not to be blamed. Anyone who saw their children about to leave them and enter high school, which also meant that their daughter was about to leave them and go to another city, would become like this. To Qin Yiru, no matter how extraordinary Yunjian's performance was previously, she was just her daughter in Qin Yiru's heart. She was just an ordinary girl. Yunjian did not want to listen to Qin Yiru's nagging, but she felt warmth in her heart. Being able to enjoy a mother's love was a luxury to her in her previous life. It was because she no longer had a mother. Yunjian felt that her rebirth was not in vain now, that she was reborn and had a wonderful mother like Qin Yiru. She was even glad that she could be reborn because of the sandalwood box. Coming. I brought the change. Qin Yiru was afraid that Yunjian would not wait for her and leave first. So she hurried down the stairs and stuffed a handful of change into Yunjian's hand. Xiao Jian, take this. You have to come home often when you're free in the military academy. Qin Yiru said as she helped Yunjian lift the bulky suitcase and headed out. Yunjian carried a small, black, flashy backpack on one shoulder. There were no books in it, only a black pen, a butterfly knife, a bunch of razor blades, and 2 daggers. This butterfly knife was not the one made from the god-slaying blade. Yunjian had hidden the butterfly saber made from deicide blade with her. Unless she took it out herself, no one would be able to retrieve it from her. Moreover, Yunjian usually carried 2 butterfly knives with her now. One was made from Godslayer blade, while the other was just a regular open-edged butterfly knife bought from a vendor. Yunjian hid the butterfly knife made from Godslayer blade on her at all times and would not dirty it when she did not need it. As for the other regular butterfly knife, Yunjian would throw it away and change it at any time if she dirtied it. Carrying the small backpack on one shoulder, no one would have imagined that Yunjian was such a sweet-looking girl with a hint of beauty and a delicate face that would mesmerize any man who saw her. What was hidden in the backpack were not books, but a bunch of knives of all kinds. Seeing Qin Yiru snatching her bulky suitcase, Yunjian quickly went over to take it back and told Qin Yiru, "Mom, I'll take it myself." As she spoke, Yunjian did not let Qin Yiru take the suitcase from her. "Hey child, Mom isn't old yet," Qin Yiru called out in relief. Qin Yiru sent Yunjian to the bus station personally and watched the bus leave slowly. After an hour or 2 of journey, Yunjian finally arrived at Min City from Longmin City. Yunjian pulled her suitcase to the entrance of Min City's military academy after getting off the bus. This was not her first time coming to Min City's military academy. However, due to Yunjian's antics last time, her Year 1 and Year 2 classmates had already been promoted to Year 2 and Year 3. Year 3 students had already graduated. Moreover, this was the military training period, which meant that Yunjian would not see any familiar faces. Chu Ning and the other 5 were still on summer break. Only the new Year 1 students would rush to school to participate in the month-long military training. Even the instructors who were fighting to have Yunjian join their team would not appear during this month. As the school attached great importance to this military training, they had sent national senior instructors to train the new batch of students. Yunjian's lips curled up at the thought. She was looking forward to the senior instructor's training. Her new life would begin here as well. Chapter 1328. The school was still the same as the last time Yunjian came. The ground was very clean, but because a month of summer vacation had passed, there were a lot of fallen leaves on the ground. This also fully proved that the school was very environmentally friendly and green. There were fallen leaves, which meant that there were trees. A school with trees. The students who lived here breathed in the freshest air. Yunjian stepped on the hot summer day, not afraid of being exposed to the sun. She strolled from the school gate to the school's report board. Generally, when new students entered the school, they would look for their name on the report board and see which class they were in. Yunjian quickly found her name on the report board. At the top of her name was a big word, Grade 1 Class 2. Yunjian narrowed her eyes. She gently slung her black shoulder bag over her shoulder. When she turned to leave, a girl suddenly rushed up from behind. The girl rushed up, and because Yunjian turned around, she lost her balance. However, the girl still forcibly bumped into Yunjian with the mentality that as long as she didn't get hurt, it didn't matter what others did. Or maybe it was because she was unhappy with Yunjian standing there and wanted to fiercely push Yunjian away. She moved closer to the report board and bumped into Yunjian with her shoulder. If it was an ordinary person, they would probably have been hit. Yunjian just narrowed her eyes. She didn't even turn her body. She just moved her feet slightly to the side and moved her body away from the girl's momentum. The girl didn't stop for a moment and actually bumped into a boy who was standing in front of her. He was at least 200 pounds and reeked of sweat. This boy's body reeked of sweat. The smell was so strong that the girl who tried to push Yunjian almost vomited her breakfast. The surrounding people were all young boys and girls who were in puberty. When they saw the girl pounce on a boy, they all shouted, "Oh!" The girl quickly pushed away the boy who reeked of sweat. Then, she quickly reacted and pointed at Yunjian and scolded her. "Why did you dodge just now? If you didn't dodge, I wouldn't have bumped into him. And I wouldn't have made a fool of myself. If I don't dodge, am I supposed to let you hit me?" Yunjian sneered. She ignored the girl and walked straight to class 1, 2, with her shoulder bag. No matter how the girls shouted behind him, he ignored them all. After Yunjian entered the classroom, she casually found a seat and sat down. She was surrounded by new classmates. Yunjian did not know them, and they did not know Yunjian either. Even the teachers and students sitting on the podium did not recognize any of them. After Yunjian placed her shoulder bag on the seat and sat down, the girl sitting beside Yunjian suddenly expressed her goodwill. "Hello, my name is Lin Wan. What's your name?" Seeing that someone was trying to please her, Yunjian replied indifferently, "Yunjian." She had always been a cold person. The girl named Lin Wan did not take offense. Instead, she smiled at Yunjian and asked, "Yunjian, your name is very nice. Can we be friends?" Since they were unfamiliar with this place, most girls were used to looking for friends first. Yunjian nodded slightly. This Lin Wan was very interesting. As she spoke, she always liked to say things that could make people laugh. Soon, the girls sitting around Yunjian were all amused by Lin Wan and laughed. Even Yunjian could not help but smile. After talking for almost 10 minutes, Yunjian suddenly saw a person walk in through the door. This person was the girl who scolded Yunjian on the report board. Yunjian lowered her eyes. Such a coincidence? Just as she was thinking this, Lin Wan had already pulled Yunjian's hand and said, "Yunjian, can you accompany me to the restroom?" Yunjian agreed. Lin Wan gave her a good first impression. When the two came back from the restroom, Yunjian suddenly saw that her small black backpack had been thrown on the ground. All kinds of knives in the backpack were exposed in front of the surrounding students. The girl who scolded Yunjian on the report board was now stepping on Yunjian's small backpack. Seeing that Yunjian had come back, the girl laughed a few times and mocked. TSK, this student's backpack doesn't even have a single book. Hey, it's full of knives. We're a military school, but what are you trying to show by having knives in your backpack? Are you trying to show that you're special? Or do you want others to think that you're different from us? Chapter 1329. This girl was very arrogant. At this moment, the homeroom teacher sitting on the podium went out. It was probably because the homeroom teacher went out that the female lead was so arrogant. Moreover, the girl could not forget how she had bumped into a fat, sweaty boy when Yunjian dodged like that when she was in the report column. She was a clean freak. And most importantly, the scene just now was seen by many students. These students all shouted and kicked up a fuss. The girl couldn't tolerate this the most, so when she saw that Yunjian was in the same class as her, she wanted to take revenge. The students in the class didn't know each other, so they were all strangers. So when they saw the girl attacking Yunjian, they were all a little confused. But it was undeniable that the girl opened Yunjian's small bag. When a student saw that Yunjian's small bag was filled with all kinds of knives, they were all instantly stunned. Yunjian saw the girl stepping on her bag. Before she could say anything, Lin Wan, who was standing beside Yunjian, grabbed Yunjian and walked up angrily. Lin Wan looked at the girl angrily. She gritted her teeth and said, "Classmate, what do you mean by this?" Lin Wan was not only a girl who liked to joke, but she was also very righteous. It did not matter what the girl had come to Yunjian for. But at this moment, it was obvious that this girl was looking for trouble with Yunjian. Yunjian lowered her eyes. She simply stood aside and didn't say anything. However, the scene of Lin Wan standing up for her made Yunjian's eyelids twitch slightly. "Who do you think you are? This matter has nothing to do with you. If you know what's good for you, then scram." The girl saw that Yunjian's expression didn't change at all. She was angry, but when she saw Lin Wan standing up for Yunjian, she shouted back, "Classmate, are you crazy? You're scolding people as soon as you open your mouth. Besides, you bullied my friend. How is it none of my business?" Lin Wan sneered at the girl. She walked over and pushed the girl away. Then, she picked up Yunjian's small school bag from the girl's feet. The girl was pushed by Lin Wan. Before she could react, she staggered back 2 steps and steadied herself. Then, she pointed at Lin Wan and shouted, "How dare you treat me like this? Do you know who I am? Let me tell you, my father is..." This girl obviously didn't have much ability. After being pushed by Lin Wan, she didn't dare to fight back. Lin Wan's pushing strength was not something an ordinary girl should have. The eyes of the surrounding boys lit up. Even Yun Jian raised her eyebrows slightly. The teacher is here. The teacher is here. At this moment, someone suddenly shouted a few times. Then, a group of people rushed back to their seats. The girl who caused trouble just now was called Lin Shuya. Lin Shuya originally had some ability. However, after facing Lin Wan, she was frightened by the strength of Lin Wan's push. Now that she heard that the teacher was here, Lin Shuya also quickly sat back down. However, before she left, she turned her head and glared fiercely at Yun Jian. It was as if she was saying, "This is not over." After Lin Wan helped Yun Jian pick up the small school bag, she had all the knives scattered on the ground back into the small school bag. Then, she pulled Yun Jian's hand and went to the toilet. "Yun Jian, I'll help you wash the outside of the school bag. It was quite dirty from being stepped on just now," Lin Wan said very kindly. And Yun Jian didn't refuse. Just now, Yun Jian didn't make a move and didn't show her strength. This made the students in the class think that Yun Jian was really just a weak girl. Look, she was bullied like this and didn't even dare to fight back. In the end, she even asked her friend to stand up for her. They didn't know that it wasn't that Yun Jian didn't dare to fight back. It was just that she had just arrived in a new environment and didn't want to become the center of attention. Chapter 1330. This black backpack was bought by Qin Yuru for Yun Jian some time ago, so Yun Jian naturally couldn't throw it away. At the entrance of the girls' washroom, Lin Wan was helping Yun Jian clean her backpack very carefully and seriously. "Yun Jian, your backpack is so beautiful, hey." Lin Wan rushed to help Yun Jian clean her backpack. "Thank you." Yun Jian thanked Lin Wan politely when she saw how serious the latter was in helping her clean her bag. It was not supposed to be her job anyway. "Don't be so polite." "Huh, we'll be good friends from now on." Lin Wan turned her head and gave Yun Jian a big smile. Then she wiped the last stain on the black backpack. "Here, take it," Lin Wan said, and returned the backpack to Yun Jian. Then Lin Wan and Yun Jian returned to the classroom together. When they returned to the classroom and sat down, the homeroom teacher was already standing on the podium. Seeing that all the students were in place, the homeroom teacher cleared his throat and introduced himself. "Hello, everyone. My surname is Chu." "Huh, I believe you can tell my gender. As for you, you can call me Teacher Chu. You just entered high school, and I believe that most of you here are coming to military school for the first time. Our high school is different from ordinary schools. Our military school focuses on physical strength and practice. Moreover, there are more boys in the class. I've counted the girls, and there are more girls in our class than other classes. There are a total of 6 girls. Of course, this means that the boys in our class have to be good protectors. Don't let the girls in our class get bullied." Teacher Chu was a male teacher, but his words were quite humorous and witty. Standing on the podium, Mr. Chu walked back and forth, talking as he walked. After a while, all the students in the class laughed heartily. Even Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Sure enough, military school was the most suitable place for her. Normal schools, be it junior high school, or university, were all focused on learning. Physical education classes were pitifully few in a week. The military academy was the exact opposite. Physical training was the most important. After explaining the basic precautions, Chu Laosher continued to say, "Let's go to the cafeteria and have lunch. We'll gather in the classroom at 12:30. We'll prepare to leave for military training. Remember to bring your suitcases. The location of our military training is not in the school. As for the dormitory in the school, we will arrange it after the 1-month military training ends." After Mr. Chu arranged everything, he told everyone to disperse. There was only one large canteen in the military academy, but the canteen had all kinds of dishes, and they were quite sumptuous. As soon as Yun Jian and Lin Wan arrived, Lin Wan exclaimed loudly, "Wow." However, before Lin Wan could pull Yun Jian to line up in front of the canteen window, they were blocked by Lin Shuya and the group of girls she brought. If they were not mistaken, The group of girls behind Lin Shuya were the ones in the class other than Yun Jian and Lin Wan. She actually managed to rope in the other girls in the class so quickly. Lin Shuya pointed a finger at Yun Jian and yelled at her, "What the hell? Let me tell you, your previous behavior has already made me very angry. If you know what's good for you, quickly kneel down and apologize to me. Then I can still forgive you. Otherwise, I won't be polite to you now." Lin Shuya took the lead to stir up trouble, which made the freshmen of the other classes who passed by stop and take a second look. After all, it was not common to take the lead to stir up trouble like this. Today, they encountered a good show as soon as school started, so they had to stop and take a look. Lin Shuya put her hands on her hips and looked at Yun Jian arrogantly. The surrounding students also sized up Yun Jian. However, Yun Jian's pupils contracted fiercely, and she suddenly walked toward a certain part of the canteen. Lin Wan was just about to stand up for Yun Jian when she saw that Yun Jian had already walked toward a certain part of the canteen. Seeing this, Lin Wan hurriedly called out, Hey, Yun Jian, where are you going?" Yun Jian ignored her and walked straight to a certain corner of the canteen. Then, she came to a girl about 16 or 17 years old and reached out to grab a seemingly ordinary white stone that was strung up by a red string around the girl's neck. Yun Jian's eyes darkened, and then she turned to look at the girl. The sharp refraction in her eyes made the girl with the white stone suddenly tremble. Chapter 1331. Yun Jian ignored Lin Shuya. Instead, she walked up to a female classmate from another class that she didn't know at all. She reached out and picked out the white stone hanging around the female classmate's neck, and then asked again. When Lin Shuya saw this, she thought that Yun Jian deliberately wanted to make a fool of herself in front of everyone. She thought that Yun Jian was deliberately ignoring her, or that she wanted to attract attention in the cafeteria. Some girls in puberty especially like to show a different side of themselves from other girls, so they attracted the attention of boys. Lin Shuya immediately thought that this was Yun Jian's purpose, so she stood in place and smiled coldly at Yun Jian in front of all the boys and girls in the cafeteria, deliberately mystifying. "What are you pretending for? Just now in the classroom, I purposely dropped your bag. What's the matter? Now you want to pretend to be very powerful?" Lin Shuya's words made the surrounding students pick up their gazes and look at Yun Jian again. However, they saw that Yun Jian was not affected at all. Her deep and beautiful eyes stared at the girl sitting at the cafeteria table eating. The girl was frightened by Yun Jian's stare. She quickly reached out to pull the red string in Yun Jian's hand. The white stone was tied to the red string. The red string was hung around the girl's neck. The girl wanted to pull the red string back, but she pulled it twice, but the red string did not move. Yun Jian had no intention of returning the white stone to the girl. On the contrary, Yun Jian ignored Lin Shuya, who was standing behind her and insulting her loudly. She looked at the white stone fiercely and then repeated in a loud voice, "Stone, where did you get it?" It was not a question, but an absolute questioning tone. Yun Jian had never shown such an expression in front of outsiders. But after seeing this white stone today, she slightly lost control. The reason was simple. This was just an ordinary stone, but the front of the stone was engraved with a letter that was so blurry that if one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't even be able to see what it was MY. On the back of the white stone, there were two blurry letters, SS. SS naturally referred to slaying God, who was also Yun Jian herself. As for the word MY, Yun Jian didn't know what it meant in Chinese, but Yun Jian knew that it represented the little girl Yun Jian knew in Han when she was young. The little girl who hugged her every night in the cruel assassin organization, comforting her not to be afraid and telling her, "We have to be fine. We will definitely be able to go home." But in the end, the little girl did not return home. Instead, for the sake of Yun Jian, the other girls in the organization worked together to cut off all her limbs and dig out her heart before she died. In the end, her corpse was fed to the wolves. The person who should have died was Yun Jian. Yun Jian didn't know the little girl's name. She only knew that the little girl was MY and she was SS. This white stone might be nothing to others. When they were in the assassin organization, Yunjian and the little girl used a sharp stone to carve a stone stroke by stroke. The little girl said that with it, they would be able to find their way home one day. But in the end, the little girl died and the stone disappeared. But she never forgot the promise she made to the little girl. It was not that Yunjian had never looked for this white stone, but she couldn't find its whereabouts no matter how hard she searched. She didn't expect to see it here. Chapter 1332. You? Why do you have the same reaction as the girl I met just now when she saw this stone? Just as Yunjian stared at the white stone for a long time without moving her eyes away, the girl holding the white stone suddenly spoke. Originally, it was already very surprising to see this white stone here today. In this world, not everyone had the chance to be reborn. Yunjian was an accident. Xiao Yunzhu was a miracle. But not everyone had such a fortuitous encounter. Everyone only had one life. If they missed it, they wouldn't have a second chance. Suddenly hearing what the current owner of the White Rock, the girl in front of her, said, Yunjian looked up at the girl abruptly. With a cold expression, she reached out to grab the girl's wrist and questioned, "What are you talking about? What did you say? It hurts. It hurts. You, let go first. It hurts." The girl's wrist was suddenly grabbed by Yunjian. Yunjian didn't control her strength at this time, so the girl was almost in tears when Yunjian grabbed her wrist. A few girls sitting next to the girl also shouted at Yunjian, "Student, what are you doing? Can't you see that my classmate is in so much pain that she's about to cry? Let go first." Hearing this, Yunjian let go first. The girl heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that she was indeed hurt by Yunjian's grab. "Sorry," Yunjian said softly. Before the girl could react, she immediately asked, "Where's the girl you said had the same reaction as me?" The girl's unintentional words made Yunjian's eyelids suddenly twitch. Originally, Yunjian just wanted to ask the girl where the stone came from, but the girl's words directly made Yunjian crazy. Yunjian suddenly had a premonition. "It's from our school's shooting range. Just now, when we went to the school, we saw her standing there alone, shooting targets. Oh yes, her shooting skills are very accurate." Yunjian couldn't listen to the girl's words anymore. Yunjian turned around and ran towards the entrance of the cafeteria. Just as she ran in front of Lin Wan, Yunjian stopped for a moment. Then she asked Lin Wan, "Do you know where the shooting range is?" "I know, but Yunjian, why are you going to the shooting range?" Take me there." Yunjian raised her voice. Seeing this, Lin Wan ran to the shooting range with Yunjian. Lin Shuya and the group, who were standing in place, were stunned. In the end, Lin Shuya laughed coldly. Then, Lin Shuya took the lead to break the atmosphere. "Hee, she's pretending. Even the actors in dramas can't be compared to her, right? Let's go, let's see what kind of tricks she's up her sleeve." With Lin Shuya's organization, the people present were really a little surprised about what Yunjian was going to do. Therefore, the group of people noisily chased in the direction Yunjian went. Among the people who went, Yunjian wasn't the only one from grade 1 too. Now, there were only new grade 1 students in the school. Grade 2 and grade 3 were still on summer vacation. At this moment, most of the grade 1 students who were eating in the cafeteria followed Lin Shuya to join in the fun. Lin Shuya organized all the grade 1 students to follow Yunjian to the shooting range. Her main purpose was to see Yunjian make a fool of herself in public. At this moment, Lin Shuya couldn't help but think in her heart, "Hey, this time, Yunjian wants to make a fool of herself. It has nothing to do with me." When Lin Shuya brought a group of people to the empty shooting range, she saw that Yunjian had already walked towards the only girl standing in front of the shooting range. The girl's back gave Yunjian a sense of familiarity. At this moment, Yunjian already had a big smile on her face. This girl's back overlapped with the little girl who had been protecting her in the organization. Thinking of this, Yunjian suddenly pulled out 2 daggers from her waist in front of everyone. Then, she clasped the 2 daggers in each of her palms and silently rushed towards the girl's back in front of everyone. Seeing this, The group of students who were standing far away widened their eyes in surprise. Some of them even shouted, "What?" Chapter 1333. At this moment, even Lin Shuya, who had been trying to guess what Yin Jian was thinking, was stunned. After being stunned, Lin Shuya revealed a sneer on her face. She even stretched out her hand and waved at the crowd. "I think she just wants to be in the limelight, humph." The two of them must have agreed in advance. "If you don't believe me, just wait and see." Lin Shuya suddenly thought of such an explanation, so she said it out loud. In the end, even Lin Shuya believed that Yun Jian's dash toward the only girl standing in front of the shooting target must be what was going on. This matter was most likely something that Yun Jian and the girl standing in front of the shooting target had agreed in advance. Their purpose was to be in the limelight in front of the whole school. Then, they deliberately mystified themselves and made it seem like they weren't creatures from this earth. They're really crazy. Do they think we can't see it? They directed and acted out a good show themselves. Do they really think we're all fools? As soon as the last word fell, Lin Shuya turned her head to look at the large group of students standing behind her who had followed her to watch the show. However, she saw that the large group of students who had followed her to watch the show suddenly widened their eyes. Lin Shuya was shocked. She also turned her head and saw a shocking scene. Originally, Lin Shuya, as well as all the students present, thought that Yun Jian was just taking out the knife for show. After all, they were in school now. No one would dare to kill someone so boldly, right? Moreover, after listening to Lin Shuya's words, the surrounding group of students thought that Yun Jian was taking out the knife for show. Therefore, the students were misled by Lin Shuya's words, thinking that Yun Jian was really just a scheming girl who wanted to be in the limelight in front of the whole school. However, right at that moment, the crowd turned their heads to look, and they just happened to see such a scene. They saw Yun Jian holding 2 daggers in each hand. Her figure was like lightning rushing toward the girl. Her feet stepped on the ground, but there was no sound at all. The blade of the dagger in her hand was facing the ground as she gripped it with the back of her hand. In just a few moments, Yun Jian was already sprinting towards the girl at a speed that was too fast for the naked eye to follow. Within 5 breaths, she was already behind the girl. At this moment, the girl showed no signs of turning around. Seeing this scene, the people standing in the distance held their breaths. "Oh my God, is she trying to kill someone in our school? How dare she kill someone in the military academy? She's crazy. Hurry up and call the teacher over. Someone is going to die." Some people in the crowd had already realized that something was wrong, so they began to shout loudly. However, it was too late. Yun Jian dashed in front of the girl in a few blinks. She held the 2 daggers and stabbed the girl's back. Oh my God! Some of the people watching from afar had already covered their faces. However, in the military academy, there were more boys and only a few girls. Therefore, the boys present did not cover their eyes, but they all looked over in horror. The dagger in Yun Jian's hand was less than 3 centimeters away from the girl's back. The girl in the distance was already screaming and trembling. It was also at this moment that the girl standing in front of the shooting target suddenly placed a sniper rifle without gunpowder behind her back. The sniper rifle that the girl was using for training stopped Yun Jian's daggers at a distance of 3 centimeters. Seeing this familiar technique, Yun Jian's lips curled up slightly. She suddenly turned sideways and threw her body forward. Then, she did a light somersault in the air and kicked the girl's abdomen, who had already turned around. The girl was stepped on by Yun Jian. She took 3 steps back, but stood firmly on the spot. Then, the girl saw Yun Jian clearly. There was a trace of tears at the corner of her eyes. When she saw Yun Jian clearly, the girl paused for a few seconds and held back her tears. She said, "I knew that with your strength, you would definitely survive and fulfill your promise to me. I'm very glad that you're still alive." Yun Jian also smiled. There was a trace of moisture at the corner of her eyes, but it did not fall. Chapter 1334. What live? What do you mean by fulfilling your promise to me? Aren't the 2 of them still alive and standing right in front of me? Moreover, how did the two of them get their shocking skills from just now? Lin Wan, Lin Shuya, and all the other students who were standing in the distance were dumbfounded when they saw this scene. What was going on? Lin Shuya didn't know anything else, but Lin Shuya knew that she was indeed stunned when she heard the nonsensical conversation between Yun Jian and that girl. When Lin Shuya recovered from her shock, she was even more disgusted with Yun Jian. Seeing that all the students standing around her were sizing up Yun Jian and that girl, Lin Shuya was very unhappy. So Lin Shuya began to clamor again. Everyone, don't be fooled by the two of them. They must have agreed beforehand and then deliberately said some strange words and did some strange actions for us to see. I don't know what they're up to. Lin Shuya's words successfully made the group of girls around her shout like the wind. The girls thought that Yun Jian and that girl were deliberately showing off, which made the group of girls around them extremely envious. So after being provoked by Lin Shuya, Yun Jian and that girl who looked enchanting and slightly charming quickly became the public enemy of all the girls present. However, Yun Jian and the girl standing in the distance didn't care at all. Let's go to the dormitory building. There's no one there. The girl standing in front of Yun Jian put the sniper rifle back on the long table in the shooting range and then led Yun Jian to a place. There were too many people here, and some things weren't good to talk about. Yun Jian nodded slightly, and then she turned her head to look at Lin Wan, who was standing not far from her. You go to the cafeteria first. Okay. Lin Wan nodded after she reacted. After Yun Jian finished speaking, she didn't even look at Lin Shuya and the others in the distance. She and the girl walked away in front of everyone just like that. Hey, you. Lin Shuya wanted to take everyone to chase after them, but she was stopped by Lin Wan. Student, what are you trying to do? My friends have something to say. Do you want to invade their privacy by following them? My grandfather is a lawyer. Do you believe that I will sue you? Lin Wan stopped Lin Shuya and the others, helping Yun Jian and the girls gain some personal time. Originally, Lin Shuya wanted to chase after them, but when she heard Lin Wan say that her grandfather was a lawyer, Lin Shuya was a little scared. She stood where she was and stomped her feet, but didn't chase after them. In front of the dormitory. Today, they came to school because the military training for the freshmen had begun. The location of the military training was not within the school, so the students did not stay in the dormitory. Therefore, no one walked around the dormitory building. It was so quiet that even the sound of cicadas could be heard clearly. Yun Jian and the girl stood facing each other. Sis, I thought I'd never see you again. The girl broke the silence and said, Me too. Yun Jian's voice was slightly hoarse, but from her expression, there was no change in the slightest. Even though Yun Jian's heart was fluctuating, no emotional changes could be seen on her face. Actually, I didn't die at that time, so I could be considered dead. The girl spoke at this time. As she spoke, she grinned at Yun Jian casually. I think we should get to know each other again first. My name is Muing. Back in the organization, Ma was just an abbreviation of my name. Chapter 1335. Muing smiled, then stopped smiling. She looked at Yun Jian from head to toe before continuing. You're very strong. I'm afraid I can't last more than 3 moves against you now. You're the only one who completed all the missions of an Han organization and escaped from their control. You didn't disappoint me. Muing was only 9 years old when she died. She only stayed in an Han organization for a few years. Even so, anyone who grew up in such an environment would not be simple. Tell me about yourself. Yun Jian crossed her arms and looked at Mu Ying with narrowed eyes. Only then did Mu Ying smile. She put away her smile and said in a serious tone, At that time, I did die. But fortunately, before my body was thrown to the wolves, my brain was extracted by a perverted doctor. Maybe you'll understand better if I explain it this way. That means I'm still me now. My thoughts are all the same, but this body is not my own. My body has already been eaten by wolves and dogs. This body now belongs to a little girl. Back then, that perverted doctor transplanted my brain into the body of that little girl who had already died, and only then was I revived. He saved me so that I could pretend to be a little girl and accompany the little girl's family. Huh, don't you think I'm lucky? That crazy doctor is the only scientist in the world who can transfer a person's consciousness to another person's body. I'm also his first successful experiment. But unfortunately, he passed away 2 years after I took over this body. Now that I have a new family as a little girl, I'm very satisfied. Muing summarized her life story in a few sentences. Yunjian was shocked when she heard that. There was actually someone in the world who could transfer a person's consciousness to another dead person, turning that person into another person. But since she could be reborn, then this wasn't so unbelievable anymore. Isn't it unbelievable? Huh. However, after I turned into a little girl, I didn't give up on training. While I was in high school, I immediately applied for the Min City Military Academy. I just didn't expect to meet you here again. Muing told Yunjian what had happened to her, but she didn't ask about Yunjian's experience, nor did she dare to ask. The less she knew about Yunjian's background, the safer she would be. Muing had been in Han for some time, so she understood this. Moreover, Muing didn't want to participate in the world of assassins and secret agents from her previous life. As for why Muing had been training her strength nonstop, it was partly due to the influence of the idea of the winner being king in her previous life. She wanted to become stronger. On the other hand, it was because Mu Ying's current family, her grandfather, grandmother, father, mother, and even relatives, were all soldiers. It could be said that Mu Ying's current identity was the little princess of a military family. Growing up in such a family, Muing couldn't do it if she didn't have some capability. Yunjian liked people like Muing who didn't ask about her current identity. She smiled faintly at Muing. Then, let's put aside everything from the past and get to know each other again. As she spoke, Yunjian extended her hand again and placed it in front of Muing, reintroducing herself. I'm Yunjian from Jia Province's Longmen City. I'm 16 this year, a freshman. Muing was touched by Yunjian's words. Life was unpredictable. Back then, they were prepared to die in Han. Being able to leave in Han was already a luxury for them back then. Muing held Yunjian's hand with tears glistening in her eyes and introduced herself again. I'm Muing from Min City, a freshman from Class 9. Nice to meet you. Chapter 1336. After explaining things to Muing, Yunjian and Muing went to the cafeteria to get some food. The things that happened in an Han organization did exist, but Muing said that she was no longer the same person in an Han organization. She would try her best to forget her past, because the current Muing had her own happy family. This meant that Muing and Yunjian's life trajectories were no longer the same. Muing went to the cafeteria with Yunjian for lunch. Middle school and high school meals were different. Middle school meals were fixed meals, while high school meals were free to order by swiping cards. Although it was the first day of school, the homeroom teachers had already distributed meal cards to each student when they first arrived in the classroom. After lunch in the cafeteria, Yunjian parted ways with Muing and went to her classroom. Yunjian, over here. Before they reached class 1, 2, Linwan was already waving at Yunjian, not far from the door. The homeroom teacher, Mr. Chu, was leading the class. All the students had already gathered at the door with their respective suitcases and backpacks. Yunjian smiled at Linwan and walked into the classroom. She slung her black backpack over her shoulder and dragged her suitcase out of the classroom. She stood at the door and gathered with the other students. Mr. Chu stood at the front. When he saw that most of the students who went to the cafeteria for lunch had returned, he opened his mouth and said, "The school bus that will take you to the field training camp will be here in a while. I will briefly explain the rules of your military training. This year's freshman's military training is the strictest in history. Moreover, this year's freshman's military training will be in the field training camp. Basically, it will be actual combat. There will be specialized instructors to explain the specific matters to you when you get there. Later, you will all be assigned to your respective tents. Regardless of wind or rain, you will be living in tents for the next month. To put it bluntly, it was to train the students' survival skills in the field." As soon as Mr. Chu finished speaking, the surrounding students cried out in pain. "Oh my God, Military training in the wild. Are they trying to tire us to death? Lin Wan began to shout after hearing the news. After screaming twice, Lin Wan turned to look at Yunjian. Seeing that she was not afraid at all, Lin Wan asked Yunjian in shock, Yunjian, aren't you afraid? I heard that it's possible to encounter poisonous snakes and beasts during military training in the field. Should I be afraid? Yunjian turned to look at Lin Wan and said softly, some people really think that they are invincible just because they were in the limelight in front of everyone. TSK, don't get scared to wake up in the middle of the night and cry, Mommy, I want to go home. When Lin Shuya, who was standing not far away, heard this, she quickly spoke to Yunjian in a mocking tone. Lin Shuya did not believe the strength that Yunjian displayed in front of everyone just now. Not to mention Lin Shuya. When the people present saw Yunjian and Mu Ying's actions, it was likely that no one present believed that Yunjian and Mu Ying's true strength just now. After all, this was the first time that the new batch of high school freshmen came into contact with the military academy. Before this, everyone came from ordinary high schools, and no one deliberately trained their skills. In that kind of field training camp, it's normal for girls to be afraid. At most, I'll lend you my shoulder to lean on. Chapter 1337. Su Haoqing, you still want to take advantage of the girls in our class? Move aside. As soon as the boisterous boy finished speaking, a lean, good-looking boy immediately walked over and pushed away the boisterous boy named Su Haoqing. Damn, you're asking for a beating, aren't you? The boy named Su Haoqing quickly started fighting with the lean, good-looking boy. Although the students in the class didn't know each other before today, they were all able to play and laugh together very quickly. Just like Lin Wan, although it was her first day meeting Yunjian, she was also very used to talking to Yunjian. Are you guys listening to me or not? Seeing that the people around her were all talking and completely ignoring her, Lin Shuya was so angry that she lifted her foot and stomped. But in the end, Lin Shuya's voice still softened. After a while, Lin Shuya suddenly curled her lips. She seemed to have thought of something, and so she smiled very proudly. Shuya, when you were eating in the cafeteria just now, didn't you tell us that your cousin is a senior in the second year? This time we're going to the field training camp for military training. Your cousin was invited by the school to come back early to accompany us, right? Then you should know what the field training camp leader looks like now, right? Hurry up and tell us. Will there be any danger during the field training period? Also, your cousin must be very powerful, right? Otherwise, he shouldn't have the ability to be personally invited by the school to come back and lead us, right? Lin Shuya had just finished laughing cockily when a girl standing next to Lin Shuya, who had already resolutely become Lin Shuya's little follower, said Lin Shuya's cockiness in front of everyone. If she didn't say it, no one would know. Once she said it, the surrounding people all looked at Lin Shuya with astonished eyes. Seeing the surrounding people looking at her with astonished eyes, Lin Shuya felt that she was floating. She fiercely glared at Yunjian, who was standing next to her, before Lin Shuya began to brag. My cousin is one of the most powerful students in the second year of our military school, and my cousin has been training Taekwondo, Sanda, and Judo since he was young. Speaking of this, Lin Shuya looked at Yunjian again, trying to see a stunned expression on Yunjian's face. To Lin Shuya's disappointment, however, Yunjian maintained her nonchalant expression as if nothing could catch her eye. There was not even the slightest change in her expression, let alone being surprised by what Lin Shuya said. Seeing this, Lin Shuya became even angrier. Since the first time she met Yunjian, Yunjian had dodged her and caused her to bump into a fat and sweaty boy. Until now, Yunjian had maintained that aloof face that was unpleasant to the eye. Lin Shuya felt that she had to tear Yunjian's face apart or her name would be written upside down. Yunjian didn't react, but that didn't mean that the surrounding people didn't react. According to Lin Shuya, her cousin actually knew Taekwondo, Sanda, and Judo. He could be considered to have everything. Wow! The surrounding students exclaimed loudly. Even some of the boys exclaimed, "That's awesome!" Yunjian only raised her eyelids slightly, not taking it seriously at all. The school bus is here. The school bus is here. Everyone, hurry up and get ready to get on. Teacher Chu walked over at this time. After counting the number of people in the class, she waved and led all the students to the school bus. One school bus for each class. The military academy was quite wealthy and generous. By the time the students arrived at the field training camp, it was already 3 in the afternoon. Chapter 1338. Field Training Camp. The name sounded quite advanced, but in reality, the location of the field training camp was set in a rural village in Min City. The village was called Banxiao Village. It took about 2 hours to get to Banxiao Village from Min City Military Academy. Since the school bus had to carry more students and the school bus was rather large, if the driver drove too fast, there was a high chance of danger happening. With this in mind, the driver drove slowly and steadily. When Yunjian and the rest arrived at Banxiao Village, it was already 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The field training camp was located in a small forest and a small hill. The school bus could only drive to Banxiao Village. To get to the field training camp, they had to walk from Banxiao Village to the field training camp. They had to walk for about half an hour to get to the training camp that was uninhabited. They had just gotten off the school bus and were not in a hurry to set off. Banxiao Village was a village, and there were more older people living in the village. Yunjian's class arrived early, so they had to wait for the new students from the other classes to arrive at Banxiao Village. Then, the instructors would lead them into the mountains. Of course, before that, the school had to distribute food and tents to each student for them to bring into the mountains. After Yunjian and Lin Wan got off the bus, they sat on a piece of cement in front of a house in Banxiao Village to rest their feet. After waiting for about 10 minutes or so, they saw a slender, enchanting, and slightly charming girl walk down from another school bus. She was as delicate as a little princess. It was Muing. When Muing saw Yunjian, she walked over to Yunjian. When she saw Yunjian and Lin Wan sitting on the cement, she walked over and sat down as well. We'll be entering the mountains soon. Muing pressed her hands on the cement and turned to look at Yunjian with a smile. I miss it. Yunjian smiled. When they were in a Hun group, there was a period of time when the group threw everyone into the Amazon forest and did not give them anything. For 6 months, they were left to fend for themselves in the Amazon forest. When it came to food, they had to do it themselves. If they encountered a venomous snake or a ferocious beast and didn't have any tools, they had to fight it with their bare hands. That was the worst time Yunjian had ever been in Han. At the same time, those 6 months were also the best time for her to improve her strength. The Amazon forest was a dangerous forest where every species in the world lived. An average person would not survive more than 3 days in there. To be able to fight his way out of that place and survive for 6 months. Today's military training was nothing to Yunjian. But even so, Yunjian would treat it with 100% enthusiasm. Ying. Just as Yunjian and Mu Ying were chatting in low voices, lowering the atmosphere slightly, Lin Wan was about to remedy the situation when a male voice sounded. Yunjian raised her head slightly and saw a boy in a military uniform walking towards them. The boy looked to be around 18 or 19 years old. He was walking towards Muing. Muing raised her head and looked at the boy. She lowered her head and asked calmly, "Why are you here?" "The school invited me to come back early to lead you guys. You guys don't have any foundation in the first year of high school. It's easy for you guys to get into trouble by coming to the field training camp," the boy explained. He laughed dryly. Seeing Mu Ying's attitude towards him, his smile was bitter. Seeing Yunjian and Lin Wan sitting beside Mu Ying, the boy paused for a moment. He then introduced himself to Yunjian and Lin Wan. "Hello, I'm Lung Hanja. I'm in my 3rd year of high school. I should be your senior. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference. as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.